We are back.
We are back. Same good time, same good day.
We are I'm happy to be here. As I said last week, Robert, it's been kind of cool to keep doing this on a weekly basis. I think now this is show 4 because of which the math is always feel weird because like it's not a full month of it yet because our first show was April 1st.
True.
Right.
We only know so far that this works in April. We have no proof of concept for May.
Exactly. Yeah. We don't know. And luckily for us, there's one more Wednesday in April for us. I just double checked to make sure that.
Thank goodness. I am not ready to take the show on to month 2 yet.
Exactly. So I don't know what May could potentially hold, but we are here. We've got really excited about the show we got today. As usual, we've got some fun conversation between Robert and myself. Obviously, we will have some guests on as long as our crack producer goes through and delivers. And I think we should start with that. Robert, you got any producer notes from show 3 heading into show 4?
Yes. Producer note number 1, don't kick Dominic Moore off the show next time. Yep. So the next time we have him as a guest, let him stay on the show the whole time instead of having his audio cut out and make him leave and rejoin. So any other former NHLers and current broadcasters, let them stay on the show the whole time. That's a big one. So good plus. Also, don't kick yourself off the show. That's another one we got. I'm supposed to stay on the show, not leave and then come back. Which surprised me too. So those are the 2 big ones. I don't know what your sit down was like with the producer. Did you have any others?
Yeah, we had the one where it was, let's maybe, I know we didn't do it, but I guess it's worth bringing up right now. Maybe we don't have a back end producer, but we should maybe tell the back end producer to find a back end producer to double check guest audio before they step on. Maybe
your Wi-Fi just garbled that. Can you run it again?
The Wi-Fi definitely just made the list. I can tell. Yes, it was.
Oh, this is good. This is ironic that this is happening during the producer notes section. That we're getting the robo voice distorted Sean during the producer notes section. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, this is actually an intentional effect. I hit the robo voice for this section.
I don't know if you could put like an actual tinfoil hat on, if that might help.
Like I can put let's see, I can put a hat on. Let's see what I've got somewhere around here. Let's see. Let's go with a hat. And I could we should make some tinfoil hats. Could put a hat on. Is that helping? Is that helping? Has it helped?
It's okay. That's the fun thing about doing this live. We'll get it sorted out.
Yeah. Oh, there goes Robert. Okay. I think it might have been Robert's stuff. Anywho, we're all live here. If you're here, if you're here, I really appreciate it. It might have been Robert's Wi-Fi, not mine, but we have a pretty good show today, as I said. From my production standpoint, and once Robert rejoins, as he said, he won't kick himself out. From my production standpoint, for all our viewers here, I see a bunch of people in the comments already. We're going to try to get a little bit better trying to kind of jump onto that. And yes, thank you to that comment right there. It might have been Robert's Wi-Fi, might have been his problem. It is. I would like to go back to last week's show as I try to kill some time till Robert comes back on and bring up that this show has been a really fun development for me and for an element of it's actually helped with some of the other Wednesday activities for me. I play beer league hockey on Wednesday night. So last week we had Steve Thompson on, and it looks like Robert Tiffin has returned. Robert, I think it might have been your Wi-Fi. It might have.
How's that for irony? That
yes, I think it was you.
Producer notes, and with us just assuming it's your Wi-Fi.
Yes.
That apparently it was mine.
Mm-hmm. So we will add that to the notes, and we will accept a fully worded proper apology at a later time. I was telling the people, Robert.
That's a brutal one. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. That was a brutal one to take right off the bat.
I will say non-production note. Maybe it's a production note, but I will say after we had Steve Thompson on last week, and I joked about beer league hockey success out of it. The Anchormen went and won 4-0 that night, Wednesday night. So since speaking to the director of goaltending development for USA Hockey, we are now going to have Steve on every single week for the sake of my beer league team's success.
You have to.
We have to. In all seriousness, I did text and tell Steve this, and he was such a great guest last week. I loved his passion that he brought to all of that, and he sent me a nice thank you note and a message saying just like letting him come on and talk about just the goaltending position and the passion for that. And what you saw last week with Steve was a very authentic, passionate person. So, unlike Robert's Wi-Fi, he was great. So
okay, that's good. Good stuff. Yeah, you're living in a little bit of a glass house over there, buddy.
Oh, I know. I know. It's gonna
chuck those stones, throw them, get that arm warmed up.
It's gonna crash soon. It's gonna crash. I guarantee you that. Robert, so you're in Dallas right now, but we've got Game 3 of the Dallas-Minnesota series coming up, and obviously we would like the show to be a little bit evergreen, but we obviously won't avoid the news of the day and the week and everything like that. Mm-hmm. So last week we were going into the playoffs. We kind of knew what round 1 would look like, kind of matchup-wise. We got that all figured out. 5-6 days into playoff hockey, Robert, how are we feeling?
It's my favorite time of year. Yesterday it was really hitting me. I think it was just the quality of, the Montreal Tampa Bay game was ridiculous, as a lot of Tampa Bay playoff games tend to be these days. But I mean, the Utah Vegas series, that's going to be great. Every game there has just been fantastic so far. I mean, 2 so far, and even LA. I mean, Colorado could still sweep them, but I give LA a lot of credit for basically doing a lot of what they wanted to do in that series. It's been a really fun watch. I haven't watched as much of the Carolina-Ottawa, but there's been a bunch of drama with the rules and everything there too. So for me, this time of year, there was a point yesterday on Tuesday when there were 4 playoff games happening at once. And I just don't think there's a better world in which to live. Now, my YouTube TV getting like the multi-views and stuff sorted all out a little tricky, but it's been great so far, honestly. Like, it is the thing Gary Bettman says he wants it to be, where the first round is as good as it gets. And when it's good, it's really good. Arguably, shouldn't be this good, but everyone talks about the playoff format. We've done it too. I'm loving it, to be honest. Like, it's hard for me to be negative about anything right now, just because there's so much good hockey on every single day. First round.
What's your go-to? Obviously, there's professional responsibilities when the Stars are playing. So tonight, obviously, you will be locked in on Dallas, Minnesota. That's going to be priority 1 for you tonight. But
emphasis on the night part of that. 9 p.m.
Oh my goodness. Yes. What is that going to be? An 8:53, 8:52 local puck drop for the folks in St. Paul, I think?
That'd be my guess. Yep. Same thing Dallas did on Monday. Just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's definitely, as I was talking with our pal Gavin Spittle on the phone the other day, it's not to cry poverty for anyone, but it reminds me of the days being in high school in the Detroit area and seeing Wings Ducks being a typical first round. Now, at least the home games, though, in Detroit started at a normal time as opposed to the games that went over there. But
that was the irony this year, right? Is that Detroit all said they want to get out of the West so their start times would be better, and now this is the year where they would have made the playoffs if they were in the West. So if
they're in the West, they would have at least had start times. Now we finally get actually on that note.
The zingers today. Do your zingers get better as your beard gets longer? Is that how it works?
It's not breaking news, but we actually have Steve Yzerman and Tom McClellan will actually speak tomorrow for the first time since the season ended. So last year, Yzerman's waited until April 29th to speak. This year was a full 7 days earlier, so we will get a little bit more of the, I don't know about clarity, but what maybe that should be question 1 to the Red Wings brass tomorrow of have you applied for Western Conference credentials,
reinstatement and everything. Yes. Do you have an extra? Anyone want to trade? Anyone want to trade? Yeah.
For that point, Robert, when you don't have a game you're locked in on for professional covering a game, what's your kind of, like last night, Thursday and Friday this week, since Dallas and Minnesota game 4 will be on Saturday. Are you picking one game, you bouncing back and forth? What's your kind of, on your casual playoff watching night, what's your go-to?
It was almost ideal last night because the Boston Buffalo game, I think, started 30 minutes before or after the Tampa Montreal game. So they were offset by 30 minutes, which was pretty perfect. So when one was at intermission, the other one was going. So that was a pretty easy, like there's a little bit where I had both on the screen at once. So I could kind of see if there's something I wanted to check in on. The multi-view thing is nice for that. But ideally, I'm just going to choose one and kind of ride it out. And especially, if a game gets late in the third, or certainly when Montreal and Tampa went to overtime, checked in on that and kind of prioritize that over the other ones, especially early on. But again, shockingly, the Colorado LA series it kept me up late last night because it was actually pretty compelling in the way that LA has to make that series compelling. So for me, I usually multi-view if there's a bunch going on, but if it's a compelling part of a game or a particularly compelling matchup, then I'll pick that one. What do you do? You got to do something similar.
Yeah, I do a lot. It's kind of it depends on, honestly, the time of the day. Like, so the typical Eastern Conference start time games, just since I am home and getting kids to bed, I typically just kind of have the TV running with a couple games in the background, and then I'll typically kind of go and pick one to kind of focus in on, because I have a way, and like tonight I'll do it with the Dallas Minnesota game, and I typically like to kind of pick
tomorrow morning.
Yeah. I like to be able to use that pause function, which doesn't work super well with the multi-stream, right? So like I like to be able to, when there's random little stuff popping up, or you see how a zone entry works here, or things that kind of excite you, or you kind of want to go back to. I tend to pick one of those and then kind of bounce around a little bit. But then overtime obviously takes a bit of that's the precedence, unless you've got something you're intentionally focusing on for another game. That's kind of the way I go about it. I
had a friend text me last night who does not care about like sports at all, and certainly not hockey, about the Montreal Tampa game, just because this time of year, this hockey, it is that good that it pulls people in, and it constantly kind of impresses me that the product is so good. I mean, I like baseball. I know you're a Mets fan too. Playoff baseball is great. The tension, the strategy, all that stuff, it's great. I really do love playoff baseball, and obviously football and basketball kind of speak for themselves. But when you have a good playoff hockey game, I don't think there's a better like single game sports conversion experience in any other sport. I think a good playoff game can create a hockey fan for life.
And it can, as long as the broadcast doesn't drive them away, which has also been a bit of, unfortunately.
Oh man, did you see when the pane of glass broke the other last night behind the LA bench, and ESPN had to kind of vamp for a little bit?
Yep.
That was too bad.
I wrote about it earlier this week over at my site, and maybe you're watching at my site right now. Maybe you're watching at Robert's site, or wherever you're watching right now. It's pretty cool that you found this place. But we're in year 5 of this ESPN deal. 2 more years after this, we know that there's going to be ESPN is going to try, obviously, to stay in the picture when that deal goes up. They have the A package. I believe they will have the right of first refusal for the next deal as well for when it comes to the A package. Okay. But it's pretty embarrassing. It's the whole, like, the amount of things that have gotten through the quality control filter that feel like they should be kind of obvious catches is what's really bothered me. Like, personally, I'm not a big fan of criticizing play-by-play or analyst styles while the game is going on. Like, I think I think that tends to be a little bit more personal preference, right? Like, for example, there's obviously some inherent bias here for me because we both are big fans of Josh Bogorod, the person. But Josh, for example, I know his style took a little bit of getting used to for Stars fans, right? Like, and now I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's. It's hard to find any Stars fans that have pushed back against it now. But I think early on there was a little bit of is this the right fit for us? And so I'm not a huge fan of always, when it comes to like the play-by-play voice, and while there are some I like better than others, and I think there's some staffing decisions that those networks should make that they haven't, but I do think the studio show and the simple research element of the sideline report that should be base level, right? Like when you should know Tage Thompson being a former Blues pick and getting traded to the Sabres, kind of a big story in his career. It's not the only franchise he's ever known. When you talk about Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, it is the goalie of the Buffalo Sabres. The pronunciation guide is available on the media site. You are the rights holder. You should be able to have someone who even give you him saying his name. And it's the starting goalie too, right? Like it's not just I don't want
in the first Sabres playoff team in like 15 years or whatever. Like this
exactly
the name you should know.
Exactly. And so this isn't Yoel Kiviranta isn't a difficult name to pronounce. This isn't Yoel Kiviranta becoming a fourth line star, going from like fourth liner to scoring big goals like he did in 2020, right? Where it kind of come out of nowhere. You know that Pekka Luukkonen is going to be a big storyline. You should be able to have done your homework on that.
And it's not honestly, it's not the most difficult name. You just need to see it and memorize it. Yes, I get it. It's not like usual, anglicized vernacular or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like this is a former player who played with like Yari Curry and other people who have non-traditional like North American names. It should not be that tough to get this name down. And it happened again. Did you see it happening again last night too?
Oh my God!
Like that to me is the baffling. Did no one step in and say, "Look, it's not a great look to stumble over this guy's name. It's maybe not xenophobic, but it's not a good look. Let's do better. Let's try to just." Instead, it was like a joke again last night, and it felt even more hollow than the first time.
Yeah, it's definitely something that doesn't. It's really annoying to watch, and it pulls me out of the broadcast a lot, and I'm someone who's going to watch every game, and so that's if it's pulling me out, what's it going to do for? A lot of my friends aren't hockey fans, and it's if you say, "Hey, come, you want to watch the game or whatever," like there's such a baseline for teaching and entertainment and everything, and I think one of the best and worst thing that's happened to hockey coverage is what Turner's done. Positively, because I think the Turner broadcast has done a really good job. Liam McHugh deserves a ton of credit for being that kind of that moderator, right? Like I think he deserves a ton of credit for that. And then the ESPN, I think, has kind of gone in a way where it's tried to replicate it a bit too much. And
but they didn't try to replicate it in how they built the like talent and the approach. They tried to like put that format onto their existing talent and show, and it's not a good fit.
It's not a good fit. So I would like to see better coverage and everything. I mean, I have heard in the past that it will be interesting to see how the NHL takes this stuff and what they actually care and don't care about in the future as they kind of take the deals forward on this. I wanted to, before we're going to have our first scheduled guest in about 10 minutes, if everything goes according to plan. But before we do that, one team up 2-0 in their series, Carolina Hurricanes, win the overtime game the other night. Wild situation where offsides play, but still leads to the penalty shot. It's very, very weird, bizarre thing. But the connection to it, and we're not going to talk a lot of basketball on this show, but I did want to bring up the concept of, it would be remiss if we didn't talk about the Tom Dundon story that's been popping off in the NBA right now with the Portland Trailblazers, where the team reporter did not travel for the playoffs. The team photographer did not travel for the playoffs. Players on two-way contracts when the NBA did not travel. Which according to all reporting I've seen is the norm. Two-way contracts typically travel for the playoffs, even though they can't play, which by the way, seems very odd that two-way contract players are unavailable for the NBA playoffs, but that's just my initial reaction to that. And then we see the news about Dundon being openly potentially looking for Thiago Splitter's replacement as the interim coach, because this is a franchise that, oh, by the way, their head coach lost his job at the beginning of the year because he was is part of a gambling ring.
Yeah,
yes.
John C. Billups. Yeah.
The Mr. Big Shot holds so much more meaning now when it comes to to that.
Oh boy,
we see this kind of the Tom Dundonification of the Trailblazers in Portland, and I didn't want to be I don't want to be crass about it, but isn't this what, if you're coming from a hockey world, this shouldn't surprise you, right?
In a hockey world, I think you hear about a lot of teams doing this where everything is looked at. The revenue streams are just very different, especially with all the RSNs kind of collapsing. That money just isn't there anymore. So every team, I think, more or less, I mean, there are exceptions. Montreal, Toronto are not exactly hurting for cash and probably never will be. But a lot of places, they're having to ask a lot of hard questions. And so that means you see different. I mean, look, in this market, you'll hear players come and they'll be impressed that there's, people on staff to handle everything from now. I think most teams now, they have like a, psychologist, or they have, all sorts of like sleep data and stuff like this, different facilities available. We can talk about how there used to be an NHL bench was like 2 people, back in the day. And now it's, you have your staff and your guys in the sky and trainers and physios and all these different people, plus all of the amenities and stuff. Although in Toronto, that was also a story, right? That they're even with all the cash, they were cutting back a little bit too under MLSE on like player discounts at the bar and stuff like that. So it is the world we live in hockey, where people are kind of used to that. You expect that money isn't being, thrown around like crazy, because this isn't the NFL or the NBA where the money just is flowing a little bit more freely. So that's probably why it was so jarring to fans in Portland to see Tom Dundon come in and all of a sudden feel like, what are we poor now? You just paid however many, $1 billion or whatever to buy this team.
More than $4 or $5 billion to buy that team. And it's and the important thing, and I wrote about it this week, and I actually saw there was a clip where Adam Silver was on a show today, and he was asked about it. And Adam Silver's the NBA
commissioner and NBA.
And he even kind of went and said, well, I mean, Tom's not cheap. You don't win a bidding war for a team and you're cheap. And look, and I mean, the Hurricanes but the Hurricanes are a winning franchise. And that to me is one of the most, that's been one of the biggest points I've seen missed in so many stories about this, right? Like the one liner in a story of, well, he comes in, he changes things. He looks at things a little bit more neurotically and isn't afraid to cut and do that. But it's worked in Carolina, and the Hurricanes are a winning team. Well, the Hurricanes are a winning team. Let's be clear on that. But to go and talk about them, to ignore the fact that that culture is largely built on Rod Brind'Amour, right? It is almost entirely built on Rod Brind'Amour, and it's almost entirely built on Rod Brind'Amour and what he's been willing to do. It was very public when he was making his salary was a bit lower than market rate, and now he is someone who is. It became a little bit more public when I think it was 2024 when he signed his contract extension. I mean,
which took a little bit longer, I think, than people were expecting at the time, as I recall. Yeah. And so to go when people go and say, I guess maybe the best equivalent to the Hurricanes' success when it comes to giving an owner credit versus who maybe an influential figure who's actually who wants to be there is maybe you go back to the early 90s and the Dallas Cowboys, right? You think about an owner of the team who wanted to take credit for some success and thought that he was too big for a coach and everything, and so even threatened by that coach's popularity. Instead of seeing that as like bolstering the overall brand and stuff, it was I don't like how popular it's like a king in the old days. That's like, this general's getting a little too popular. I can't handle this. Look, what's the real like the shorthand for this sort of mentality? You want to call it cost cutting or efficiency. I'm sure efficiency is the word that Dundon would use, or something like that, right? Like, we just need to streamline operations and not waste money. Like he'll always say, I'm sure people like this, these billionaires usually do. I'm willing to spend absolutely on stuff, and they do spend, as a team, if it's worth it. The problem is he wants to be able to prove whether something is worth it or not based on very specific criteria. And sometimes that criteria doesn't account for things like it's the right thing to do to bring these guys on two-way contracts, because that's the expectation in the league. And it does a lot of things for you to have them around, and a lot of, things that aren't as easy to quantify, but it might just be the right thing to do. I mean, again, I don't have a super strong feeling about this in the AMA since I don't really cover it that closely at all.
No, but I do think a good example in Carolina is obviously, Eric Tolsky does not have the president title of business, but his predecessor, the GM, Don Waddell, who has now left the organization for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Don Waddell was the only of the 32 teams in the NHL. Only one had their president of business and their GM under one title. Like, you think about that from a Stars perspective, and that's Brad Albert's and one person doing Brad Albert's job and Jim Nill's job at the same time. Like, I know you've been looking into a lot of all this stuff lately. Imagine on one hand you're trying to work out a deal with Jason Robertson, and the other one you're getting sued by the Mavericks the same day. Like those are the.
And then your owner wants you to do regular calls about, okay, what's the status on this? What's the status on that, or whatever. I'm sure that's going on in Carolina, right?
Yes.
So it just. No one wants bloated organizations with a million middle managers. I get it. But there's a reason that a lot of these structures are the way they are and have been the way they are. And I think I'm just really, really skeptical when someone comes in and they profess to be a genius by doing a lot of things that save them money and don't change their life or their day-to-day at all at the very top of the organization, but they might have a much bigger impact on people a lot further down the food chain. That to me just always tends to be a really easy, fix a number on a spreadsheet and look like you're saving money. Anyone who's worked for a big company probably knows some initiative or something that some VP has tried to push to do exactly that sort of thing at some point, right? Oh, we're saving money here, we're reducing costs on this end, and that's going to make me look like a genius as long as we hit these numbers. And that means that some lower level manager has to go to the employees at some point and say, oh, by the way, we can't do the monthly birthday celebration this way anymore. It's a potluck style instead. And it's just a bummer, right? For the people that are actually, sweating and bleeding for the organization on the front lines. So look, we've seen it in Carolina. Visiting locker rooms are kind of notoriously horrible there. Because I'm sure from Tom Dundon's perspective, why would we improve them? It doesn't help our team. It's for the other side. Why would we do it?
I will say this on the flip side of that, because I remember getting a tour of the Islanders' new building before it went up. And actually I have a really good, funny story related to this on two fronts. First off, the visiting room, the two best visiting rooms in the league, in my view, one is Detroit. Detroit's got a bigger visiting room than most home rooms are, right? Like, it is it's huge. The visiting room at UBS Arena in Long Island is very similar, just large, impressive, and everything like that. And one of the stories that was told when I got the media tour of UBS Arena as it was getting built, and we're getting the footprint and everything like that, there was apparently part of that design came from Lou Lamoriello. And we had the whole Lou conversation with Elliot a couple weeks back about kind of his personality, but apparently one of Lou Lamoriello's things when they were building that is, I want players when they come play here, I want it in their mind that facilities are never going to be a reason they wouldn't want to be an Islander 2 or 3 years from now.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of, that's a vibe of, I think that's a big vibe of things that is important. It's not going to be the dollars and cents are ultimately going to decide why players play somewhere, but it also keeps players happy, right? Like, so I think that's definitely an important part of this, I guess.
The other thing that's always stuck out to me about this is Disneyland has this whole mentality about trash on the ground. And that's the one thing you notice compared to other theme parks. If you go to Disneyland, I don't know if it's the case at Disney World, but I went to Disneyland a couple of times, went there a year or two ago with my brother and his wife and their 2 kids. And it's a blast. But once you have it in the back of your head, try to find like trash on the ground at this theme park with innumerable amounts of people coming in and out throughout the day, people buying all sorts of stuff, people bringing in, the food and the snacks and stuff for the kiddos. And they have people dedicated to making sure that trash does not sit on the ground there for any length of time. And look, are people still going to come to Disneyland if there's some trash in the gutters here and there? Yeah, it's not going to probably, sure. At a certain point, it would like have an effect if it's really nasty. But the point is that they decided we want to be the type of place where that sort of thing that you might not even necessarily think too much about, what sort of place do we want this to be? We want it to be the sort of place where a piece of trash won't distract you from what we want the product to be. And like you're talking about the Islanders, they wanted it to be a place where that wouldn't distract a player from what type of organization is this. They don't want to have those little, because players notice that. I'm sure you've talked to players who told you stories about, wow, really? I have to pay for this, or I only get this amount of sticks a year, or only get this, one goalie mask or something like that. They feel it when they're getting nickel and dimed. And even though, it's kind of champagne problems a little bit, it says something about you as an organization when you're willing to just accept a certain amount of, we want our floor to be up here as opposed to as low as it could possibly be until it costs us.
Especially, and it's you want your organization to be part of the group raising the bar, and I think that's one of the things where it's like, I know I've talked to players in Colorado because the Avalanche practice facility is, if you were to go rank practice facilities across the league 1 through 32, the Colorado one is probably pretty low. It's not stopping anyone from picking the Avalanche, but it is something that I know.
Well, and Vancouver doesn't even have one, right? Like, they're trying to get one built.
Exactly, yeah. But so it makes a difference, and players notice that, and it's I don't know, it's kind of the funny part of the whole, kind of how you treat people, where you want things to go, because I think in many ways the bar has never been higher for the players, but it has also created some of the space, and it's one of the worst kept secrets in sports is, unfortunately, a lot of the people that you and I deal with on a day-to-day basis are, and this is just universal standard, and it's not that they're not treated well, I want to be clear like that, but there is, the worst kept secret in sports is that the money is not there for, unless you are one of the performers, and that's what these athletes are.
Yep.
It's well known that if you're running social media or working in whatever field, that there's someone who is younger, hungrier, and wants to work in sports that could replace you and work for cheap. And that is one of the worst kept secrets in sports, and it's one of the things that kind of has, unfortunately, and we don't need to go too inside baseball on how journalism works and everything like that, but same thing has happened in sports journalism. I think that's why sports journalism has always been a level of, until you become one of the big fish, until you get the ESPN or the Turner job or whatever, you're probably someone who's making way under what should be quote unquote market value, because you get that dangling carrot of you get to work in sports.
Exactly.
So
it's they leverage, businesses look at, okay, how much does it actually cost? What's the return on investment for this? For a lot of, media models, let's say, it's advertising. So does our advertising go up if we pay more for this, or if our reporter stays in a better hotel on the road, or even goes on the road more at all? Do they pay more if we even write stuff up for away games, right? Do they pay more? I mean, there are even places where it seems like there is money that don't want to write more stories, because if anything, it could affect their numbers the other way. It's very kind of upside down sometimes, and not the way a lot of people see it. And it's exactly because of the glitz and glamour perceived around sports. They want to trade off that kind of without actually having to back it up in all the ways behind the scenes where people won't see that, oh yeah, these people actually, they're expected to do a lot of hustling, and they are not the ones getting the driver to and from the airport. They're the ones just figuring it out. Here's the bus, whatever it is. And, people know what they're signing up for, I think, usually, in fairness, like, people get it, but it is, like you said, a little bit more of the less glamorous side of how these places are structured, where probably 90% of the budget is for, the 20, 25 guys putting the on-ice product there. And then they have to figure out the other 10% among the other couple hundred employees. Yeah,
it's an interesting thing, because, like, I know someone who worked in PR for an NHL team for a long time, actually, and for almost 10 years, I believe, and they left that job for a more corporate PR position with Carhartt, actually, and they left to go work for Carhartt, and it was, as much as they loved working in the league and working in the NHL, and there's the excitement in life, and you get to travel around, but at the end of the day, there's a difference, and you're making way more money if you're working,
especially if you have a family and stuff too, and you want some more stability and predictability too, in terms of what's
if you're working for a clothing brand. So if you're working for a clothing brand, you're not dealing with fires of, hey, our owner's not flying two-way players to and from San Antonio for playoff games, right? So there's
not too much of an issue. No.
Right. It's we will have our first guest. I know that they messaged that they were on their way. They hit some traffic, so we can needle them for that when they come on.
Hey, let me answer a question. Tim asked the question in the comments really quickly, and I can hit on this because it's sort of tangentially related to what we're talking about. Tim asks in the comments if, on the topic of Stars versus Mavs, do either of you think the Stars leave downtown? And that's where a lot of these cost conversations come into play, because as you know, Sean, a lot of the revenue from people who own hockey teams comes from owning the building and the other revenue they get from the building. So I would say when it comes to these sorts of discussions, that should probably be at the forefront of your mind, even as a fan. And from reading the reporting that's already out there, is how much revenue are certain solutions, whether for, in the Stars case, going downtown, going somewhere else downtown, going somewhere else, sharing the building, what those splits are going to look like with that relationship with the Mavs, the way the Mavs have decided to make that relationship lately. Those are all big factors and things to keep an eye on. So a lot more to be said on that, but that revenue question is a big deal, because as much as it seems like everyone's rich in sports, owners just don't tend to think that way, because they can't. They have to project 20 years out and account for a lot of big budget swings and economic factors.
All right, Robert, we got our guest here. I promised him that when he entered, I would treat him like the finest Sportsnet guest we have ever had. So this is coming in with a high bar to after our pal Elliot. But this, if you're looking at Sportsnet, you think of this man first. And so,
obviously, yeah.
So we're gonna add him to the stage, and then I have the exact proper intro to give him once he pops onto here.
Face of the franchise, I think, is the phrase to go with. Okay.
So I am happy to be joined by my pal Dimitri Filipovic. How's it going, bud?
Fellas, great intro. It was exactly what I asked for, and so you delivered, and I'm going to deliver on my end, and I'm coming on the show, and we're going to have a blast. Sorry for being fashionably late. I wasn't trying to big time you guys as the face of Sportsnet. It's been a busy time trying to watch all these playoff games, but I'm excited to be here with you.
It's the best time of year, and that cuts both ways, though. As you know, there's a million things pulling you in a million different directions. So we appreciate that you made time for us here today.
Absolutely. What do you guys want to talk about? I didn't even get a rundown. I was expecting Shapiro to come in hot with a bunch of topics, but I feel like we're just gonna freewheel it. So whatever you guys want to talk about.
We do have production meetings, but as our own back end production meetings, we're in show 4. You do 4 shows a week on the PDOcast. You do at least, so you're a pro here on this, and so we're definitely a little bit working our way into the world on all of this, but. I wanted to bring you on and just first off, you said you weren't going to big time us, but I do want to brag about you for a second, because 2 weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago, I have no idea how long ago, but basically I'm seeing there's big analytics conference going on in Colorado. It's the reason Jack Hahn is even raving about it on our show, and little old Dimitri is sitting center stage during most of it with Jared Bednar, and obviously our pal Thomas Drance is with you as well. And your show has obviously gone and grown, and it's been a really cool thing to build. But for you, I just wanted to, all the time we have these fun hockey conversations, but I wanted to throw this to you from a personal element. If I told you when you started the PDOcast, in your mind, you think, hey, I'm getting an invite to go and be part of a kind of a keynote part of this type of thing with the Avalanche. And I want to I'm going to brag about you, and I want you to kind of soak it all in. I
appreciate that. Now listen, to let the listeners know, that wasn't one of my requests for coming on, for you to start off with that. The intro was, but this is all you're doing. I'm not sure you're ultimately setting me up for success here, because both of you are great writers and have a big following and should be even bigger. Honestly, I love both of your work, but I feel like a large segment of your audience are Stars fans. And so I feel like starting off with talking about the Avalanche and how much fun I had in Denver might not be
You'll be
best
fine.
way to endear myself.
Better hair. Jared Bednar, Glenn Golitzin, or Sean Shapiro.
Oh man, wow. That's Mount Rushmore right there.
Pretty much.
No, Bednar's hair was incredible, and he was wonderful to chat with. I had to wear a 3-piece suit just because I knew I wouldn't be able to contend with his hair.
So from the neck down, maybe you can hang.
Yes. Yeah. No, it was great. I mean, the Avs were awesome. It was totally their doing in terms of setting that up and inviting Drance and I to come and participate in it. And Bednar was a great sport about it. You know, typically, I think it helps that the Avs were in a comfortable spot where, like, they've been sitting in first. They knew that they would have home ice throughout, so they were playing out the string in the regular season, and it wasn't necessarily as tense as it might have been for other teams. But he was so comfortable and transparent in talking about, you know, the stuff that he does from a process perspective in terms of prepping for games, but also interactions with players during and after games. And that's the type of stuff that, you typically don't get an insight to from coaches, especially in season. And so we really appreciated that. And he was great. And I think 31 teams had representatives at the event. And so it was kind of cool. It was almost doubling as a NHL draft replacement, where it was just opportunity for everyone to be in the same place, trade ideas, kind of just catch up and stuff. And so, yeah, it was a very humbling experience. It was really cool. I had no idea that would be part of my job description when I started doing the PDOcast 10 years ago. But I think it speaks to the great audience we have and how it's built up along the way. And so, yeah, it was awesome to do it. And I hope to do more of that stuff moving forward.
Okay, you said 31 teams, so I have to ask, and maybe you'd rather not say in case it sounds like you're sewering an organization, but was there a 32nd team that didn't surprise you that they didn't send someone? Was it Tom Dundon who said he didn't want to pay for the plane ticket? What was it?
No, it actually wasn't. It was the Caps, which did surprise me because they have been pretty on the forefront of analytics, with their assistant GM being one of the pioneers of analytics in hockey. And we had Spencer Carberry on the show during the Olympics, and
it was a good show.
He's a really modern coach who really utilizes that as a resource in his job. And so I was a little surprised. I'm not sure what happened there in terms of them not sending anyone, but I feel like the reception and from all the teams was great in terms of having someone there. A lot of teams had like 6 or 7 people there in attendance. They were all wearing team merchandise with these like either quarter zips or tracksuits with the team logo on it. And so it was really segmented in that way, a lot of affiliation going on. And so it was really cool.
I remember the Seattle Hockey Analytics Conference. I think it would have been in 2018 or 2019. And like Allison Lucan, who we all love, Mike McCurdy, a few other folks were there. And Dave Tippett was there as well. And then there were a bunch of other team people in those outfits. And it was really, you couldn't help it because you're in a big auditorium and you can't help but notice how like, when are they kind of talking to each other? When are the team people kind of perking up? And when are they kind of like doing the, yeah. Oh yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. We never thought about that. Oh, using NHL shot plotting data. Oh yeah. That's definitely accurate. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Well, I think it went well because we knew we were going to have Bednar as part of the show for the second half of it. I wanted to, while we were there, just to maximize our time. Like I wanted to get Chris McFarland, the team's GM, on the show as well, to just record him while we were at Ball Arena. And initially he was like, I'm too busy. Like, I don't have time in my day. And I was like, I totally get it. Like, I'm sure you have a million things going on. And while we're chatting with Bednar, I look and he's like sitting in the front row watching it. And then he comes up after and he's like, you know what? I had an opening. And so I don't know if he was vetting us to make sure that we weren't just two jokers who were going to be asking him stupid questions, or if he was feeling FOMO, not being involved as part of the process. But then he came on after and it was great. And so, yeah, it was an awesome experience. And it's really cool the teams are providing more access, especially like a top team like that. I think it sets a nice precedent. And I'm sure both of you feel the same way, although I think the Stars are probably on the better side in terms of like making people available, especially higher in the organization. But I never get why teams operate as if like this is top secret cloak and dagger stuff where it's like, oh, we cannot possibly reveal any tidbits as part of a conversation, when in reality it's like free publicity and free marketing. And also fans love it. It grows the sport. And so I know it's a little self-serving for myself as a media member to be like, give us this sort of access, but I really do hope that the NHL does a better job of it moving forward.
I think it projects confidence too, as an organization, or even as a coach. Like Bruce Cassidy is always really, really transparent about, RIP, I guess, but transparent about tactics and stuff like that, because my assumption is his perception is, look, anything that is actually dumbed down enough for you guys in the media is nothing that the 31 other teams don't already know. So there's no threat there. So I totally agree. Sean, I cut you off, I know, but
no, you're good. You're good. You're good. I wanted to Dimitri, when you kind of get that opportunity, and one of the things that's been, and this is going to be maybe a little bit too inside baseball-ish or whatever, but it's whatever. It's our show. I've always loved the way that you got a lot of practice of it, doing 5 days a week for a show with the way you get guests to open up and everything. But your interviewing style, I've always appreciated. And I'm wondering for you, if you look back, and as someone who listened to your show before ever coming onto your show quite a bit, when you kind of look back in your experience on that side of things and getting people to open up and everything like that, how has that changed for you? Like, I know I'm asking you about yourself, and I'm doing it on purpose since you don't talk about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I do give a lot of thought to this, especially in the off season, in terms of trying to get better at my craft and provide a better product for listeners. I think ultimately it comes down to just like, I'm just trying to have a good time while also like speaking in a thoughtful manner that helps educate people along the way. And so, especially for people in the game, like whether you're part of an organization or even journalists, I think they appreciate that because a lot of other content is very based on like clickbaity sort of quick little sound bites or headlines that you could use to gain an audience. And for me, I'm not really that interested in that. Like I'd much rather talk through the process. So typically when I have a coach on, especially, I feel like what works really well is I reference watching their team play like a random Tuesday night game against the 28th ranked team. And I like bring up some play that I saw that wasn't part of any highlight pack. And you could like instantly see that they're like, oh, a fellow puck knower. Okay. And now we can talk on this level. And then they like immediately open up and start being involved. And that comes from a genuine place. I think they can tell because I'm not trying to bait them into anything. Like I genuinely want to know how they approach a certain situation or how that all played out for their team. So yeah, everyone's got their own style. And I get a lot of people now as well sort of asking me like, I really want to get into hockey media. Like what could I do to get a foothold or like make a name for myself? And it's a double-edged sword, right? As I'm sure both of you can appreciate. Like on the one hand, accessibility is better than it's ever been in terms of like, there's no real barriers to just like getting a podcast mic or starting a YouTube channel or Substack. And you just put your thoughts out there. But then also there's a ton of competition because I think a lot more people are doing it now than when I started the show. So it goes both ways, but I think it's important to kind of be true to yourself and find what you want to provide to people and then just go that direction. And I think ultimately, like, hopefully people will recognize it and appreciate it and your audience will grow. And so that's always my piece of advice, but that's kind of how I got into the show in terms of just like wanting to have conversations with people in a longer form. And people seem to find that sort of stuff interesting.
I might even, not to summarize all of that, but I might summarize part of it as you genuinely just want to keep learning. And you approach everything that way, whether it's an interview or what you're putting together or what you host each week, or even in those conversations with people, you have a posture of, I think there's something I might not know, or at least not know everything about, and I'd like to know more of that. And the best way to do that is, one, do the work beforehand, like you were talking about, and show that you've done the work, put that time in for real, and then approach it with a posture of, humility, I guess, is probably the best word.
Certainly. And I think part of it is like, listen, internet interactions are kind of fraught because there's going to be stuff lost in translation and there's not going to be a lot of nuance. But I think what sort of took a long time for hockey to come around to appreciating hockey analytics more and kind of making it feel like it's part of the conversation was sometimes there was like, I'm right and you're wrong mentality from both sides, really. And it came off as a little condescending or patronizing. And I'm sure I've had many interactions that I've been part of myself that had that sort of tone. But the longer I've been doing this, like, the more I've learned, the more I've realized I don't really know that much about hockey. And I'm kind of on my own journey to learning that. And part of it is also the sport has changed so much. Like when I started in 2014 or 15 or whatever, when you compare the product now to how it's played compared to the current present day, it's just night and day, and it's entirely different and evolving. And so, I'm just trying to kind of fill in the gaps and pick up the pieces along the way. And I find it really fun. And a lot of people do as well. And so I think, that's ultimately what it boils down to for me.
What led, kind of on that thought note, what led what did you wake up this morning thinking about from last night? Like what popped in your brain from last night when you woke up this morning?
I wanted to rewatch Utah Vegas because it was a late game. I was really focused on Habs Lightning and Sabres Bruins early on. And then I was kind of trying to keep up with the Avs game and that game last night. But especially during the playoffs, like I really like to circle back and try to pick up stuff that I didn't in real time. And so it's mostly that, and it's a lot of tedious work ultimately, but I love doing it. And I think it helps improve the product that I put out there. And so that's kind of what I did. And round one is just such a blur in general. Like 4 games a night is just absolutely chaotic. And this is why I love when we get into the conference finals in particular, and you just got 1 game a night and you can really sink your teeth into it and then have fun learning stuff along the way. And so, round one is mostly just kind of like trying to hold on for dear life and survive. And then as we get further into the playoffs, then I feel like I really start to gain more of an appreciation for it.
Do you think, you mentioned being focused on the Avalanche, is there any path for LA to win, let's say, 2 games in that series? Because to me, it almost feels like they played their best 2 games already. And we saw it last night that, maybe you can defend well enough and pack the house enough. But if you don't have that line, that can actually punch back at some point, which they don't really seem to, even with Panarin playing as well as he is. I just don't see them doing much in that series, which has got to be kind of depressing because they're doing so many other things actually pretty effectively.
Yeah, it must be demoralizing. On the one hand, like I think there was a path where they would just get completely blown out of the water, and it still might happen as the series goes along. But the fact that it's been tight and competitive, I think, is ultimately a win for them. Because not to,
it's probably true.
Not to take any credit away from them, but like they probably weren't even one of the 16 best teams this season. Like I think there's a handful of East teams that were probably more deserving if you just opened up the field based on true merit. And so for them to not get completely destroyed so far, I think is impressive in its own right. But I think the Avs ultimately, like one of the big differences between the team this year and maybe past couple seasons is probably more comfort, like playing these types of games and having different problem solving tools available with all the, all the versatility they have throughout their forward group, especially. And so I think they're going to be okay using this as a bit of a opportunity to gain more like information and grind out a couple of these games. I'm sure there's going to be a blowout sprinkled in as well, and really kind of just gearing everything up towards whoever they face between Dallas and Minnesota in round 2.
You and I have talked a lot about the chess match of the playoffs, and that's what's and one of those things I'm going to say again. If you get a chance, go listen to Dimitri's interview with Jared Bednar. I thought it was a really good insight into some coaching perspectives and everything. But one of the coolest parts that I've talked about with you on your show before, and Robert and I've talked about, is the chess match of the playoffs, right? Where there's the natural 82 game season. You don't really have the time to prep for what the other team does. You really worry about yourself. And while you might have a pre-scout meeting, which is an oxymoron because scouting is pre-scouting, but while you might have that meeting, you're not actually prepping for that team. You're prepping yourself with a slight modification for what you might see that night. Come the playoffs, you actually make plans and alter your chess match for it. And I've been curious. I'm going to throw this to both of you just to kind of to think about it, because one of the things that I came into this year is I was fascinated to see, Robert, we know the Stars penalty kill has not been great this year, right? And the wild power play has been cooking along.
By their standards, no.
Mm-hmm. Yes. When you look at the Dallas penalty kill, and I remember talking to Glenn Goldson with a couple of weeks left in the season about how, well, we're kind of figuring things out, trying to get it right for ourselves. All of a sudden, now you're going to start focus on what Minnesota does, how they kind of move things with Hughes, how they kind of change the point of attack to the side with Kaprizov, and obviously Zuccarella's injury comes into play. For you, as two hockey nerds and hockey chess aficionados, what's it been like watching that kind of play out so far for those two?
I want to say something really quickly, but I'd be far more interested to hear what Dimitri says. So I will interject with this. Dallas was supposedly, because the playoff route was so set so early in the Central, Goldson said that they had already integrated scouting for Minnesota into their regular, with 10 games left in the season or something like that. They were already doing a lot of Minnesota focused prep. So you get to game 1 in that series and you allow 2 power play goals, a third goal right after a power play expires. You look bad. And then you have 24 hours to prep for game 2, and their penalty kill looks amazing. Now, granted, Matt Zuccarello not being there is obviously a big factor. That's a big one. But to me, it's kind of nuts that you have all that time. Now, they're prepping for you too, obviously, but you would think, just because defense tends to be the more dominant force when the two are equal in defense and offense, very broad generalization, but that elite penalty kill versus elite power play, it seems like the elite penalty kill, that job's easier, right? It's harder to score goals than it is to prevent goals. So I was a little bit surprised and almost amused that game 2, okay, with 24 hours to prep, way more effective, whereas a month to prep, oh no, we can't figure it out. Well,
especially the two teams played, if correct me if I'm wrong, but they played 2 head-to-heads in the final 10-15 games as well from late March on. And so there was a lot of tape out there in terms of what you'd be trying to do and how to play against it. Yeah, I find that fascinating. I did a show on Sunday night, and we'd seen game 1. And the thing that really stuck out to me from a Dallas perspective was there was just no forechecking element whatsoever at 5-on-5. You could go back and watch it, and every single time, especially when Hughes and Faber were out there, Hughes was essentially just almost like in football when you have great pass protection and your offensive line holding up, and he's just standing in the neutral zone, just
looking downfield,
waiting for someone to get open. And just like in football, if you give that quarterback enough time, eventually someone will get open and your pass defense won't be able to hold up. And so he would just wait, and then he'd find someone that would get slightly open along the boards. He'd get it to them and they'd be instantly in the zone. And so I thought in game 2, the Stars did a better job of being more aggressive and pressuring them and sort of taking away a little bit of that time and space. And then on the special teams front, I'm with you, Robert. Like, the penalty kill should be a bit easier to program, especially because what did them in game one was being over aggressive, ironically, where like they were chasing Kaprizov behind the net or even Boldy, and then all of a sudden Eriksson Ek would be wide open in the slot. And that's something that must have been driving Klingelsson crazy, because particularly with SL and Dell, but even with like Myers or Bischel, like those guys are so good at staying planted and then using their reach to kind of have their cake and eat it too, in terms of being in the right place, but also pressuring a little bit. And instead they were getting sloppy with just, I think maybe part of it was being super excited that the playoffs are here, game one, you're at home, and you're like, I want to make a play. And then all of a sudden you're out of position. And so game two, they really got back to the basics. And I think that's going to be key moving forward the rest of the series.
How indicative do you think game one of a series is in terms of like predictive value? Is game two almost more indicative in some ways because you can see those like how well they're able to adapt, show up more in game two?
Well, I've watched enough Dallas Stars series over the years to know that game one, you may as well throw it out and make it a best of six after that. So yeah, I think there's certainly some stuff you could see in terms of like potential red flags for a team where you're like, wow, that really did not work for them, or they're going to have trouble in this particular matchup. But sometimes, especially like in game one, if we have 82 games worth of a team playing a certain way, and then game one, it just looks totally different. Part of it might be opponent driven, but oftentimes it's just the human element of maybe being a bit too wired, or kind of letting the moment get to you a little bit. And then typically you see the adjustments in game two, and that's probably more reflective of how the rest of the series is going to play out. And I'm sure for this one in particular, heading back to Minnesota, like Minnesota's got to throw a punch back in return. And I'm sure there's going to be many more twists and turns in this series, and it won't be as cut and dried as game two was for Dallas. And that'll be really fun to watch. But yeah, I think ultimately we can get a bit too carried away with all the game one stuff, because it's like just the most recent thing we saw. And it's like, all right, well, the series is just going to go this way. And then we know that it's typically not how that plays out, especially between two really good teams like this one has.
It's kind of reflective too, right? Of how the whole home ice advantage thing, right? Like, I think it's undeniable. You probably want game 7 at home, right? Like, I don't think anyone's pushing that far against it, but the reality is probably the version of the NHL we watched growing up, where it was, hey, the home team, the margin for error for a home team was so much greater, right? And I think that's another kind of part of this too. Dimitri, with this, we've talked a lot about playoff hockey and everything like that. I would be remiss, just because you are in Vancouver, and I would be remiss if we didn't at least bring up where I'm seeing a world where the second most famous person at sports, and Elliot Friedman, is saying that Shane Doan is apparently in the running for the GM job, whatever we want to call the GM job, when the president of hockey operations is
whatever Jim Rutherford says it is.
Exactly. Yeah. So as someone who is in the Vancouver market and has seen that, and as someone who actually lives in Detroit, I could probably kind of actually feel we're akin a little bit in some of that. Take us through life there right now.
Yeah, well, I think one of the key requirements for that job is really knowing how to work the Starbucks app and making sure you're on point with the pickup and delivery, and making sure the orders are always there in a timely fashion.
Make sure the names are spelled right in the cups.
Yes, of course. It's tough, because I think something people genuinely often overrate in terms of a lot of these organizations is like the importance of the top-down approach, starting with the owner. And it's not even as simple, although sometimes it is, as it's just like spending enough money in particular. I mean, with the cap, it'll be interesting, because I don't think now that the cap's over 100 million, we're not going to see as many teams actually being cap teams moving forward. And there probably will be more differentiation from team 1 to team 32 in terms of spending. But even the off-ice stuff with like practice facilities and little perks here or there, but also just not meddling and like hiring people and empowering them, and then allowing them to do their job and not becoming involved. And that's been a big issue for the Canucks as an organization for a couple regimes now for the past decade or so. And so I think that's ultimately, and Dallas is a good example where like, I think Jim Nill has pretty good free reign to kind of do what he wants and have a plan and then execute it. And he's ultimately going to be responsible for the success or failure, but it's going to be a much more coherent plan and a well-oiled machine. And then you kind of work down towards the coach and the coaching staff, and then the players themselves. And so I think that's probably the crux of it for the Canucks. And it's kind of rearranging deck chairs, in my opinion, until there's meaningful change atop the organization, because whoever you bring in is probably going to have to appease the owner and appeal to their authority. and it's always going to be a complicated situation in terms of hiring the right people and bringing in the right players, and it's really tough to evaluate. So regardless of who's hired, I'm not going to be entirely optimistic, and ultimately there's just so much work for them to do, because they essentially have to start from square one now, and the build-up process is going to be tough. And I'm curious for your take actually about this. Like, something I've spoken about on the show is, with the cap going up the way it has, I think we're going to see more consolidation of power atop the NHL, where the good teams are going to stay good for a longer period of time, because there's not going to be that financial pressure on them to get rid of their good players. Essentially, they're not going to have to pick and choose the way the Lightning did for however many years. Like, you could just keep your good players once you have them, and those players are eventually going to age out and you're going to need to replace them. But I think the window for contention is going to be longer than it previously was, and so that means for some of these teams who are rebuilding and starting back from square one, I think the process is just going to be that much longer and that much more difficult to actually join that group of elite teams.
And I wonder if college free agents are going to be a big part of that too, where certain organizations are going to be more attractive to those players. And since you're already maybe able to get some NIL money in college anyway, maybe wait for that and then pick an organization where you can see a path to early success and development, because those teams are staying good. They're generating lots of revenue as a result of being good, and they're able to invest that in development and all these paths and signing lots of different free agents and stuff like that. I can see it having a cascading effect in a lot of ways to where we get to that kind of mid 90s to NHL lockout in 04 kind of path, where you have the same like 5-6 teams at the top.
I think it's a really good example is I'm just here in Detroit, and Dimitri, as I was telling Robert before we came on, like tomorrow, I just got the email that Steve Yzerman is going to address the media tomorrow morning. So he's 7 days earlier than last year. Last year he waited 20 days until it was like April 29th was the 20 days after the regular season ended before they addressed the media. And so now
my theory, Sean, is that his postseason exit interviews are all done in the comedians in cars getting coffee format, where he takes a whole day with each person and They go drive around suburban Detroit. They get a bite, get some coffee, go up in the mountains, talk for a while, have a sit down, and then rinse and repeat for 23 more.
I did once run into Michael Rasmussen at a Dairy Queen when I was with the kids, and so I wonder if maybe there was maybe Steve and Michael went to pick up a Dairy Queen cake and talked over that contract over.
If I know anything about the scientific method, we have just proven it. Yep.
When it comes to just kind of the getting back into things, and like I think this is where I'm going to connect this to Detroit here. You hear all the time of I'm very sick of the amount of times I hear of like, look what Ken Holland left him. Well, Ken Holland left 9 years ago, so there's but it's the perfect example is how you hear all of the spots of like, well, they've got some really good pieces like Raymond and Sider and Dylan Larkin, but that quest for that center that either is a 1A, 1B with Larkin or moves Larkin to a 2. It's the reality is, unless you have these pie in the sky, hot take, fantasy land things where like, oh, they might try and go get Connor McDavid, or like, which tends to happen. I don't know how Detroit ever gets that guy without winning something in the draft lottery. And to your point, Dimitri, I think that's probably the best example of it. Like, I was joking with our pal Max Boltman last week, where we spoke to Larkin last week, and he's talking about how he really enjoys that. Larkin really loves the opportunity to shut down the other team's top player. He loves the role he played at the Olympics. He said, I love when Edmonton come. I love going head to head with Connor McDavid. The problem is Dylan Larkin's game, when all of a sudden it's so focused on that's why they signed Andrew Kopp. Right? Like that's what Andrew Kopp is supposed to be. And it was it's, I don't know how you get that piece I don't know how you find the player that lets Dylan Larkin either be that and have someone above him, or the 1A, 1B in today's league, because it's a really good point, Dimitri, of they're rich. It's not that the rich are getting richer. It's just that
they're staying rich. They're
staying rich. And to Robert, to the point with the whole Jason Robertson stuff, right? In the past, it would be a foregone conclusion there was no way they were keeping Jason Robertson, right? Like, just without the cap going up, without the world where it's going to go. And so I think a lot of people still live in that world where they think, okay, well, there's no way they're going to be able to keep him, but the cap's going to go up. They'll find another way to move stuff. And and then this big exciting winger that everyone else thought, hey, we might add him to our team, is really never going to leave.
It's a weird market, but it's also a very predictable market in some other ways, because the math's all right there. Like there's no secret about what teams can do. You can't even do deferred money, which wasn't even that big of an impact before. It was something, but it's all very simple compared to cap structures, even in leagues like the NBA and stuff. So I think that ultimately what success in a lot of these organizations comes down to is, yes, who's steering the ship, but also when it comes to players like Andrew Copper, say Ben Sherratt, or whatever player you've invested in to play that role, when they're not, now you still have to get the player you thought you were getting, and you have the other player taking up space, and you have to find a spot for him. It's awkward, and no one likes buying out those big deals, especially at the start. You create problems when you're not smart and when you're not successful. And when you're successful, a Ben Sherratt is probably easier to move, right? You can convince another team that there's something there. Maybe not as many teams now, but when you're not successful, even your mistakes, when you are successful, your mistakes are probably easier to fix. And when you're unsuccessful, even the small mistakes are much harder to do.
Are you guys surprised that, and maybe it's partly because they haven't gotten to the mountaintop in terms of actually winning the cup. They made the Stanley Cup final in the bubble. They've made the Western Conference final, as everyone knows, the past couple of years. But the Stars I've found not really been propped up as like the model organization from the copycat perspective of like, well, this team did this things a certain way, and so now we're going to try to emulate it as a team on the way up and build our team that way. Is it because it's obviously very difficult to be like, let's have a historically great draft class where we find 3 superstar players who are going to be core pieces for us moving forward? And I think if you could do it, everyone would do it, and everyone is trying to do it, but it's just going to be tough to replicate. But they haven't really been used as the type of team that you're trying to emulate and copy, despite the fact that they're always a top 5 team in the regular season and generally one of the last 4 teams standing in the playoffs.
Sean has covered the Stars for a long, long time, or did cover the Stars for a long, long time. So I'm sure he can give a better answer in this. But I will say, I think one of the reasons for that is there aren't a bunch of Jim Nills out there. And he's always the name that comes up when you talk about what sets that organization apart. And it's both what Nil has done, obviously drafting with Joe McDonnell, who came over with Nil from Detroit, and all the success, obviously, that they deserve a lot of credit for, both there and in Dallas. But it's also the culture that Nil has built to allow for things like, we think Goldson actually might be a solution here, even though it kind of goes against conventional hockey wisdom to bring back this coach who hasn't been a head coach in a while. And when he was in Dallas, it didn't go well. So there are a lot of things in other organizations where the look of that would make it a non-starter, but Nil doesn't operate that way because he has a lot of respect, and he goes about his business in a way that garners a lot of respect too. And so I think that makes it tougher for other organizations, because when they say, who's the next Jim Nil? Well, it might be this AGM over here at this organization and stuff, but truly, I think he's a somewhat unique person in the hockey world, just as a person in a lot of ways. Not completely. There's, quote unquote, good guys out there all over the place. But I think that makes it tough for organizations because he is somewhat that unique. It's harder to replicate. But what would you say, Sean?
Yeah, I think the other problem is, because I've always wondered this, like we always hear it's a copycat league, and people have pushed back on this. For a couple of years, I thought it was, I would say the same thing about Carolina for a little bit, right? Like we always hear about the Hurricanes, the way they play and how and everything like that. And for a while, I was wondering why we didn't. And then Florida basically went and won a couple cups, basically taking what Carolina did and then adding some of the other elements to it, right? And chicken or the egg type deal. But the reason, I think for the longest time, people said, well, why can't you replicate what Carolina did? It was the Rod Brendamore equivalent. And we talked about that at the start of the show, Robert, of when all the Portland Trailblazers, hopefully for them, that they find the NBA equivalent of Rod Brendamore, wherever that person is.
And hopefully that equivalent doesn't want a whole lot of money every year.
Exactly. I think the one of the reasons it's hard to point to what the Stars do is because their success model, and Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, and Dimitri, correct me if I'm wrong on this, it doesn't fit the simple one-liner in a business plan, right? Like I think that's one of the good, and it's one of the things that makes them hard to replicate, and also is a credit to what they've done during Jim's time. So they've drafted well, okay, but there's also been, when they came in the first couple years, there was some bad misses and some bad management of prospects that they evolved from. There's been some good work in the free agency signing and capitalizing on some of those built-in advantages of being a tax-free state, being a place where I'll always remember Jason Spezza said one of the reasons Dallas was such an attractive option was he could be Jason Spezza, Dallas Cowboys fan, and still play and go play hockey, right? Like they've done a good job of capitalizing on all those things. And as they've been going through all of this, they've kind of gone through this pendulum of the Lindy Ruff high-flying Big 12 football on ice to 3 yards in a cloud of dust under Ken Hitchcock that made us all want to gore our eyes out, to a little bit more defensive, to what they've become now. I think that's the big thing for the Stars when you talk about kind of replicating and looking at separately is there's not a one-liner of this is Dallas Stars hockey when you're selling it in a board meeting. That's my theory.
Yeah,
well,
it's their like flexibility and adaptability in some ways, but not always. Go ahead, Dimitri.
Yeah, no, well, that's fair. I mean, I just mentioned how like I started doing this in 2014 and how much the league around me has changed since I started doing it. That's true for Jim Nill as well, right? And I think that speaks to like his evolution, and I think they've increased their risk profile. Like for so many years, we talked about how they're very reluctant to trade away first round picks at the deadline. They were like very hell bent on having like depth and making sure everything filled in, and then last trade deadline, we saw them take that big swing to try to keep up with an Edmonton where you go out and you consolidate pieces to bring in a superstar like Mikko Rantanen to hopefully put you over the top. And we saw what he did in round one in particular against Colorado and immediately rewarded them for it. And so it's an interesting thing to consider. I think the other part of the secret sauce is just like organizationally, let's give some love to a guy like Luke Chokov, for example, because a lot of these guys that they've got value out of have significantly improved their skating along the way as well, and have been able to reach newer heights and exceed their draft position as a result of it. And so, yeah, I think it's Jim Nill is going to be the figurehead, and he's ultimately responsible for wins or losses. But I think a lot of the stuff that they do well around them is probably a tougher thing to emulate because it's not as easy as just hiring one person and being like, all right, well, we're all set now.
And I think to that point, I think it's one of the reasons, and now he has, from my understanding, he's gotten a couple in-person interviews for the Nashville job. Their assistant GM, Scott White, right? Like there's a lot of organizations where if Scott White is an AGM at, not that this, like the Stars have been an impact team, but if it's at a team that's sexier in the NHL standard of hierarchy for what people think about, if he's an AGM at some of those other places, or even if they, obviously if they win a cup, it's a completely different thing too, because that all of a sudden moves your name to the top of every list. But Scott White has helped raise the Stars organization in a way that most kind of AGMs don't, right? Like we think of guys who get the job now, and it's either someone who ran the draft because you're like, oh, hey, they're a draft guy, like they're a draft guy, or you get as someone, hey, they're really good in the NHL roster construction, they're really good in they're good at kind of merging tools. Sonny Meta getting the job in New Jersey, right, is a good example of, he's obviously got the cups to put on top of the resume, but an example of someone of, hey, merging some other new age and old school tools, where Scott White's job has been building an AHL franchise that has reached the finals 4 times in 12 years, has consistently put players onto the next level like Justin Ritzkovian and Maverick Bourque. And I think his kind of lack of, for lack of a better word, interest from other organizations until just recently with Nashville is probably a good example of a lack of understanding of how the Stars and why they've done, just from that one liner there.
Yeah, I couldn't help watching Arttu Huru in game 2 of this playoff series and thinking specifically, like, this is a player they went out and just found, right? It was just out there. And, good teams do this. Lots of teams do this. They're not unique in that regard. But finding a player like that last offseason, and they play in the AA Calder Cup playoffs, go to the Western Conference Finals against Abbotsford, and then this year comes, and he played a cup of coffee last year in the NHL, Hoover did. But then this year, when he came up, he is clearly fit into a lot of things they want him to do. The development, whatever development there was to happen, happened. And now you see him plugging in as a third line center, going up against the Minnesota Wild and playing as well as he did the other day. That doesn't just happen by accident. You have to get him from, even if you get him halfway there already, by the time you find him, because he's so much older than, your 19-year-old prospect, you still have to get him from point C to D, and he's clearly there. And that's a big credit to him, like you said.
Well, it's not fair that the Stars and the Panthers have a monopoly on Finnish talent, and I think that's been a big part of this as well. And so, any enterprising organization is going to have to find a way to get involved in that.
Yeah, Dimitri. Before you go, I want to go kind of rapid style into your brain. There's 3 games tonight: Pittsburgh, Philly, Dallas, Minnesota, Anaheim, Edmonton. For someone watching right now, I want as you kind of go into those games, and I know you're going to watch and see what speaks to you as you go. But when you go into each of those 3 games tonight, what are you excited about? What's your hockey brain nerding out about as you get ready for each of those 3 games tonight?
Yeah, let's take them in order. I think for Penguins Flyers, it's that chess match element you were talking about of offense versus defense, and the Penguins were one of the best, most prolific offenses in the regular season, and they've just been completely ground to a halt by Rick Tockett's defensive system with the Flyers. And Dan Villar gets a shutout for Philly in game 2, but really that was a team effort in terms of just not giving them anything from the high danger scoring areas. And so the Penguins are in a tough spot, losing both at home, and they're going to have to figure it out really quick. And there hasn't been a lot of indication that they have the problem solving available to them to do so, but I'll be watching for that. For Minnesota Dallas, it'll just be getting more reps of the series. Like I've really enjoyed it so far. I think I would expect it to be 2-2 going back to Dallas for game 5, and splitting these in some fashion. And I'll be fascinated to see, especially atop the lineup, like what the Wild are able to throw at them with those Kaprizov and Boldy minutes and the top pair, and then how the Stars control that and the special team stuff, especially coming out of all the game 2 storylines about the officiating and all the rough stuff. And I think that's going to play an outsized role. And then what was the third game you mentioned?
Third one is Edmonton.
Edmonton.
Tonight,
yeah. Honestly, just that one feels like a guilty pleasure series, just because like a lot of goals, a lot of offense, not a ton of defending, and a lot of fun. Just on the Ducks side, a lot of fun young players. On the Oilers side, obviously more established ones, but just seeing a lot of cool plays. Probably a 4-3, 5-4 type of game, and I do expect Edmonton to pull it out, even though game 1 was very sketchy for them, being down on the third period. But I think that'll just be a fun one, and seeing how that shakes out. So yeah, it's nice that we're getting, we had the 4 games a night for a while now. I think the next couple nights we've got 3, and so can pay a little more attention to them for the next couple of days. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, the Ducks Oilers one is interesting to me because it's the perfect example of that Ducks team. I think I love what you and I have talked a lot about team building and kind of where they're going, and it's fascinating to watch a team like the Ducks in this first playoff series, and some of those younger players, the Leo Carlsons and everything like that, how their game either evolves right now or will evolve in the future because of this series. And that's why that Ducks series is it's a fun team to watch, even if not just for the way they play hockey, but just for that kind of where they are in their segmentation right now.
Hey, Dimitri, can I ask you one last thing before you go real quick, or do you need to
Absolutely. No, I can be here as long as you guys want.
You mentioned starting way back in 2014, kind of what you're doing now. I'm curious, is there a point in the last 12 years now, do you go back to a point or two where you think, that ended up being a really big turning point for me, or kind of a solidifying point for me, and where I am now, sitting down, chatting with Jared Bednar and company about things in such a big forum, and having frankly the well-deserved, respect and audience and following that you have. Do you look at a couple of points in your career where you think, that ended up being a really big decision for me?
Oh, that's a good question. Honestly, I think just sticking with it ultimately. Like, there's so many ups and downs, especially like, pandemic, fewer job opportunities, you have to reinvent yourself on the fly, the advancement of technology as well. Like, I think back when I first started, you're posting all of these like grainy GIFs during games and figuring out like how to like clip video and then do mixtapes and put together like certain stuff for shifts and all that sort of stuff. I feel like, to quote the kids, like my bag has gotten so much bigger over the years in terms of various tools that I have that I can use for analysis. And so I think just kind of sticking with it, and ultimately, if you love it, it's pretty easy to do so because it's just very rewarding. And I really enjoy like the minutia and the little stuff. But yeah, I think just the getting more reps, because you get so much better along the way, whether it's with writing or with podcasting or video work or whatever. Like, you got to get through those lumps and get the learning opportunities out of the way. And then not to say that you're ever going to be a finished product, but it's going to get a lot more refined and better along the way. And you can't really fake that. You just got to keep doing it until you get better at it. And so I think that's ultimately what I would look back to, just kind of sticking with it, because it's certainly been a long time. And if you had told me in 2014 that I'd be interviewing Jared Bednar, I wouldn't have believed you. But if you told me that I was still doing this 12 years later, I probably also wouldn't have believed you. So I've been very fortunate to get to do this for as long as I have.
Well, I've got to go I brought you in the right way, and I got to send you out the right way too. So what are you plugging? You're always a humble host when you have me on or have anyone on. You give a chance to plug in and push things to the wide world of the PDOcast and the PDO Discord, which maybe you'll bring up. But what are you plugging? Because I got to give you that opportunity, since you've given so many of those opportunities to me.
Yeah, you could read out the full URL if you want.
I appreciate it. No, go check out the PDOcast. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoy that, we put out about 2 free episodes a week on the main feed. If you enjoy that, you want more extra content, especially during the playoffs and just deeper analysis, subscribe to the PDOcast Patreon. We have some extra shows there every week. I'll also be using the newsletter more, much like I did during the Olympics. I'm tracking scoring chances individually for all these games. And so after every series, I'm going to do some reports in terms of individual, but also team breakdowns, how they were generating their offense, where it came from. And so that'll be really fun as the playoffs progress. Join the PDOcast Discord as well, where we're just hanging out, watching games every night. And you can hang out with your fellow fans and talk through these games as you're watching them every night. And so, yeah, those are my plugs. I really appreciate you guys having me on. This was a lot of fun. And hopefully I delivered as Sportsnet's preeminent guest. And I'll be happy to come on again whenever you guys will have me.
The bar has been set. I think we can say.
I'm gonna text Elliot now and say that he has been surpassed from our Sportsnet power rankings. So
got to keep him hungry. Got to keep an up and comer like him hungry. Yeah,
we got to do that. So Dimitri, thank you so much. I'm sure we will tap into that again, and I'm sure at some point we'll be on your show again soon. It's always fun. I really appreciate it. So thank you again.
Oh, thanks for having me on. Keep up the great work, guys.
Yeah,
thanks, Dimitri. There he goes, Dimitri Filipovic, the greatness of, man. What can you say? Like, putting that amount of work in for a dozen years into everything from asking questions of smarter people and trying to learn to actually trying to break stuff down and then sitting down with coaches or GMs. I mean, I always like hearing people reflect on how they got from point A to B, because so much of it is random, right? But there's also so much hard work that usually goes into it that they don't usually talk about. So even though he didn't really want to talk about it too much, I think you kind of got a sense of just how much work he's had to put in over the years. And I could listen to Dimitri talk forever. So
he's a great example of, I think, and I want to be, he's a great example of, he brought it up, and it's it's never been easier. Like, now is a great, if you want to get into this business or you want to work in the hockey reporting creation space, whatever word you want to call it, there's the good work gets rewarded. And I think that's one of the things that, for me, that has been my favorite thing about like, I've known Dimitri, I must have been 10 years ago. Like, it was probably at some point the first time I started covering the NHL in Dallas, probably the first time I was on his show. But I've listened to that show since before I was ever on, and it's been really cool to see the growth of what that's become, and to see him he was with Sportsnet exclusively for a little bit the past couple of years, and then to see the audience kind of follow him with the Patreon push of it as well, and which you should. I highly encourage. I know there's a lot of competition for your money in business and everything like that, but he is definitely one I would support. And
I would echo that, because he puts out, like he said, a couple free shows a week. So go listen to those. And if it's something where you're like, oh man, this is actually pretty good, definitely subscribe to his Patreon and listen to the other shows that he's putting out too, because they're even more, I think, in depth, or at least as in depth as the other ones. He to me is the classic example of when people say you don't know what you don't know. I always find out what I didn't know before by listening to his work or reading it. So
I have a good story about him. When I was covering the 2023 Stanley Cup final between Vegas and Florida. Dimitri and I were going back and forth on kind of messaging, watching that series. And there was, we were talking about, and it happened during the Dallas Vegas series before, where there was such a there's a little, the way Eichel attacked the zone, right? There was a little hitch, the way he's a center, but he would come down the wing, the little pause, and Ivan Barbashev would kind of take the middle a little bit more, right? And there was kind of that in-game schematic. And Dimitri, I remember talking to Dimitri about it, and kind of that holdup from Eichel. And it's one of those things where after we spoke about it, and we actually spoke about it on a show too, it was possible not to see on the broadcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like to watch the games. And I remember I went and taking this knowledge, I actually spoke to Barbashev during that cup final about the little schematic part of this. And it was funny to see a kind of a player kind of hear you bring that up and kind of chat about that. So very awesome to have him on. Thematically, Robert, we've got both our next guest has joined the studio, so credit to our crack producer for figuring all of that out. But another person who I'm really excited to have on the show, another person we just talked about kind of how Dimitri built a bunch of the stuff up with the PDOcast over the past 12 years. And I'm going to bring on a good friend who I've made now. I think I met Nick. His name's Nick. I'm sorry, Ciavarella, I believe. I'm going to butcher the last name, and I'll have him correct me when he gets on. I should have gone through that correctly. But Nick, who is runs, you may have seen him from, you've probably seen it if you have seen any NHL social media accounts with some video work. You've probably seen some of Nick's work. He's one of the co-founders of Just Dishin, which has done some great collaborations with teams and some merch-wise. Skateskins, there's a whole bunch there. So I'm gonna bring Nick in here, and after having my moment of getting his name wrong, unfortunately,
I can't wait to hear how his name is actually pronounced.
This
is the anticipation is really building here. Hey Nick,
how's
welcome.
it going, guys?
Hey.
Appreciate you guys having me on there.
You bet. How close was Sean?
Kind of close. It's Ciavarella.
Okay. Okay.
Closer than I would have expected. That's nice. All right.
At least I didn't lead with this was the only organization you've ever known, and you weren't traded from the St. Louis Blues to the Buffalo Sabres. So,
yeah.
I want to open with that actually. I believe you're what, early 30s now, I think.
Yep.
So it's been 14 years since playoff hockey in Buffalo. You would have been probably right into high school the last time there was playoff hockey. Now you get to see it in your hometown and everything. Another game tomorrow for that series. What's it been like for you to see playoff hockey in Buffalo now, after kind of for you growing up as a hockey fan in that area?
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps, honestly, even thinking about it, man. It's been the city, first off, has been so electric. I think anybody who's been to Buffalo or is from here will tell you it's a hockey town. It's been a truly, truly special time to be in Buffalo and to be able to document, the entire kind of lead up to playoffs. I've had, kind of had the pleasure of documenting the team for the past few years for the league, and it's just crazy to kind of see, where it's, this 14-year drought and kind of where they're at today. They have every piece in that locker room to really make a run at it here. And I think, it was only a matter of time before they got into the postseason. So it's truly a special time. And I know the fans in Buffalo here are very fired up for it. As I'm sure you guys have seen the posts and videos on social media.
Oh yeah.
The buzz is insane. I mean, I think one of my buddies was telling me there was like over 20 or 30,000 people at the watch party at Canal Side outside the arena. Like it was bonkers. But yeah, unbelievable time. City's really buzzing. Yesterday was tough. Game 2 was a little tough, but they'll bounce back. We got a good group in that room for sure here.
How much did that goal hurt?
Which one?
Well, I mean, we all puck that gets flipped out from that far, bounce past him. That's a rough one. Can he rebound from it?
I think so. Yeah, I think there's
Lukanen, to be clear. Yep.
Yes, I think so. I think he's been great for us between the pipes all year.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a solid 2 other goaltenders too. We got Ellis and Lyon, and those guys have stepped up to the plate when it's been time. So I was talking about it with my buddy Jared from the Charging Buffalo earlier today, and we were saying it's gonna be weird to see who they go with for game 3. Is it going to be UPL, or is it going to be Lion? And, you know, if it's Lion, what does that look like? Is that going to kind of, I mean, people are going to be, and I didn't even think about this, people are going to be on UPL if he's in that net in Boston, because you had all the Buffalo fans chanting Swayman that whole first and second game. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I think there's three guys that can all play and step up.
What's the sign in Buffalo? You mentioned how cool it is, how awesome the environment is. Is it a town, like, do you see a bunch of car flags? Like every business has like banners hanging in the window? Like when you see that vibe and you feel it, what are like the little kind of day-to-day things that kind of reinforce that for you in really cool ways?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of things. It's more and more, because I mean, for the longest time it's been Buffalo Bills, Buffalo Bills, Buffalo Bills, right? With Josh Allen, that team's been incredible. But you know, you're starting to see people wear like Sabres merchandise to the grocery store, out to the malls and things like that. So there's that. You're seeing a lot more of that. You're seeing you know, the flags, and also just people putting stuff outside their businesses saying, "Let's go Buffalo." There's the welcome to Lindy Ruffalo sign when you're coming down to 33 coming from the airport into the city. So there's a lot of that. You know, and people are getting down to the plaza at, like, you know, 1-2 o'clock in the afternoon for a 7:30 puck drop, like, and it's packed. Like, it's not just a couple people are showing up. This is legit, and this is it's just crazy to see it. It's fun to be here, and I live right in the city too, so like, just this place is really buzzing right now.
If I remember correctly too, it's you've been there too, right? You went, if I remember, you played club hockey at University of Buffalo, right? Like, so it's even for you, this is not just born and raised there. It's been kind of watching up close for all of this through the drought, right?
Yeah, I mean, from the time I could remember, I was in skates playing hockey, and my mom and family were very fortunate enough for them to keep me around the sport. And, you know, obviously it's an expensive sport, so I'm just, you know, very fortunate for them to make it happen for me and keep me around the rink all these years. But yeah, it's been cool to really see the lead up. I mean, just, you know, working for the league and stuff, I've been able to be in a lot of different arenas and cover a lot of different teams. And I don't think people sometimes realize how special of a decor we have here, for example. Like, I've watched Darlene from the time he was drafted here up until this point, and I would argue that I probably have the most amount of footage of him aside from the organization right now, just documenting his career here. But, you know, not a lot of teams, if any, in the league have a player like that who has the leadership that he does, the character on and off the ice. The skill set that he has. So, you know, it's been really fun. Like, he's a guy I've really enjoyed watching over the years, and just to see his growth both on and off the ice has been really incredible and truly inspiring, honestly, especially given everything that he's gone through with his fiance Carr. So
personally, yeah.
And to grow through that adversity, I mean, I think it takes a special someone, and he's a guy that showed up day in and day out for the organization, for that team. So I gotta give him his flowers, because it's truly been inspiring to watch.
I'm gonna go out of order here, because I there's a couple things I want to get to, but on Darlene, I want to go. There's a great story that I love. Obviously in Buffalo, legendary broadcaster, gonna do one of his last games, and you guys, through one of your projects, Skateskins, you guys end up building the skate skin that goes onto the skate to celebrate Rick's last game. And if I remember correctly, I believe it was Darlene who literally helped. You're working with Rasmus to kind of land the ship on that. So I'm going to skip ahead to that. Just kind of take me through. You guys know players want to do something special for Rick's last game. You've got this Skateskins product that I know you and I talked about years before, of trying to get over the will anyone wear this, to now the eventual. I don't remember if Rasmus was the captain then, or if he had been named the captain yet. Either way, just take me through, share that story for us of just working with him and kind of on that front there.
Yeah, I gotta give a quick shout out to Matt and Jared for really making that happen. I mean, Matt is our founder at Skateskins, and I mean, he's done an incredible job just really building that product from the ground up, and I've been fortunate enough to just be part of it from the brand side of it. But to be able to, for one, I mean, Matt and I, we've worked with Rasmus on a handful of projects over the years, and have gotten to know him pretty well. So he came to the shop when we first opened, I remember, and we were showing him the product and stuff, and he was like, "Oh, this is," you know, he kind of enjoyed it. He thought it was cool, and he's like, I think I could see a lot of like NHL guys wanting to wear this down the road. And he just like randomly hit us up the night before that RJ game, and he's like, "Hey, can I get some skate skins for me and the guys to wear for warm-ups, just in honor of Rick Jeanneret?" So Matt and Jared cooked up a couple designs and got them quickly made. And I remember Matt had dropped them off right as he left for right when he got back from his morning skate before that game. And he was still living with like Casey Middlestat at the time. And I remember Matt said Brass, I think, said like open the door and just leave him at the door or something. He had Rass had all these sneakers in the in his like front door area. And I remember when Matt dropped him off, he called me and he's like, "Yo, I just dropped him off. Like, you know, I mean, we'll see. Maybe they wear, maybe they don't." I remember I was out to dinner for my mom's birthday. Her and I and my aunt were all out, and I remember I had the stream on my phone I was watching, and Matt ended up going to the game, I think. And then Jared, I think he was at home watching, but they showed up on the broadcast and like my jaw dropped and I was like, holy shit, like this is so sick. I mean, like we grew up like idolizing like Rick Jeanneret and like playing hockey in our driveways and stuff and being like and reenacting his moments. Like I remember there's been so many times where I'd be in my driveway reenacting the Danny Briere overtime goal against Philly back in the day and like saying RJ's call. I remember. So that was a super special moment for I think for everybody involved and even the guys too for wearing them. So I think Dahlin, Tuck, Olofsson, and a few other guys wore them. And Kyle Okposo was actually the captain of that team, I believe, that year. Or no, I don't even think we had a captain at that point yet.
That might have been timing-wise. That might have been after Okposo had been traded. Was that? No, I'm getting my timing mixed up on that. Either way, I jumped ahead, but I do want to go back to the spot. So you go from I met you. I think it was during the pandemic. You and I chat. Yep. You and I and Matt talked on the phone and talked about this Skateskins product, and you guys had just done and built that custom Jordan skate, right? The Air Jordan skate. I'm sure people have kind of seen that, and maybe they don't even know that was you guys. But to go from you got an idea and you've been working on this and you've been grinding to this to now. You've done your own work, and I do want to talk a lot about the photography and video stuff in a minute. But first, I want to talk about just kind of what you and Matt and you guys have all done to kind of build this brand from Skateskins and Just Dishin company-wise to. I was earlier this season. I'm on the concourse in Detroit, and I see you guys a collaboration. Yeah, you did one with Chicago. I know you've done a couple things. For you guys, when it went from. What was the moment where it goes from, hey, this is a fun idea to where we've got a business that NHL teams are interested in working with? Like, what was that like? And kind of take me through that.
Yeah, I think Matt can obviously speak to this a lot more, but I know for me, just like being involved with it, I think we saw a lot of early like little sprints to some of this stuff. I remember like when Eichel and Jeff Skinner were here, and they had the 10-game win streak in Buffalo for that. We had like Matt came up with this like creation idea, and it was like Jack as like God and Skinner just as like himself, and they were like touching fingers, and they were like kind of like just like kind of going like to touch. It was like based off of some like artistic piece that was in a like artist museum, and I remember that like went super viral, and we started selling like flags and T-shirts, and like it just popped off on social media. So there was that. I remember the Lose for Hughes shirts were another big piece. And then the Jordan skates. And that was like our real like big viral moment that kind of like, I don't want to say like put us on the map, but I think it showed people that like, well, it kind of gave like people much more in-depth look of like who we are and like what we're trying to do for the sport. And that was showing people what the sport could look like when you have some creative flair to it, but also introducing people who maybe don't know of hockey. We're taking, bits and pieces of culture outside of hockey and bringing it into the sport and introducing hockey to people who really aren't familiar with it. And I remember being in college, and I remember Matt just like randomly text me like a photo of it's like a Photoshop version of like a hockey skate, but it was a Jordan 1 hockey skate. I was like, oh, it's kind of sick. Like, I wonder if that's like, if he's like trying to do that, or like, he's like, yo, we got to make this a thing. So our buddy Dakota Wiley, also known as Coda Customs, ended up building out a skate for us. Matt hit him up and was like, yo, like, I know you do cleats for like NFL players, but like, we got to do this. And he's like, nah, bro, like, it's going to be impossible to like, go into the carbon fiber of the skate and just make it. So finally, like, Matt was just like pressing him about it and just dropped a pair of skates off to him. Was like, yo, can you like just try it? So he tried it, and like the first pair just were like incredible. And I remember we weren't even trying to go viral with this thing either. We just like, Matt thought it was sick. I remember seeing the photo and I was like, this would be cool to see someday. So we're like messing around at the rink one day and we brought him, and Matt and I were like, I think it was just me and Matt actually at the rink, and we're like, yo, like let's just throw one of these on, like, or throw a pair on, like, let's throw them on and just shoot some photos of them, take some video of them. I think just for ourselves, like, just we think they're sick. We posted like a photo, and it kind of like started to like catch a little bit of steam. And then I made a video that I shot just on my phone, and it was like, to this day, I still say it was like the worst video I've ever made. And it was just Matt putting the skates on, and then he like steps on the ice, and then it's me taking a stride and then stick handling, and I posted it, and like 20 minutes later, I'm having like Barstool hit me up for it. I'm having ESPN hit me up, and they're like, yo, can we repost this? And like, from there, it just went nuclear. Like, it went so viral. Like, it got picked up by The Athletic. And that's where, Sean, you did the story. It got picked up by, I think, Complex, Hype Beast. Like, it was insane. And that was like, I think a big moment for us where, we kind of got put on the map a little bit, not just like locally, but like around the world.
And of course, it's like you said, it's maybe the video with the lowest production value or something of any that you would normally make. Mm-hmm. And that's the one. Isn't that always the way it works, right?
Yeah.
Well, speaking, I mean, we can stay on this, but I'm curious. You mentioned the video aspect of it, and obviously that's another big club in your bag is some of your video work too. And I mean, if anyone goes to your Instagram page and checks it out, one of the first things they'll see is some of the, like, I don't know if you call it like head tracking or whatever you do. That's really, really cool and unique. And I would love for you to talk a little bit, both to me and the audience, to help them understand a little bit about what that project is, why it looks as cool as it does, and how it's different from a lot of the other, production or camera work that's out there when it comes to the NHL and just sports in general.
Yeah, it's something I've honestly kind of done in just edits, like, I've always kind of sprinkled it in. I got the inspo from a kid named Cool Mac on Instagram, Cameron looks, and he shoots a lot of stuff for LeBron James and Bronny James, like personal content. And I saw him like do like a motion track video once of LeBron. And I'm like, that's kind of sick. Like, looks like he's just kind of he's just going into After Effects and locking, a stabilizer on LeBron's head, and just that's kind of what he's doing. So I tried it. I had some footage from like an all-star game a few years back, and I tried it on Darlene, and I'm like, wait, this is kind of sick for hockey. And then I tried it on Matthews. I had a clip of Matthews. I'm like, okay, like, this is kind of cool. Like, it's showing what the player is like doing, but keeping their head still. So you're seeing their body movements. So a couple of years went by, and I ended up getting my job with the league. And I was just messing around one day on an airplane, just with some footage I had of like Nathan McKinnon and Cal McCarr. And I brought some of the footage into After Effects, and I just tried the effect again. And I was like, whoa, this looks kind of cool. Like, I'm going to post it, and just like didn't think anything of it. And it kind of started to blow up a little bit. And then my boss hit me up, and she's like, how'd you film this? And I'm like, oh, I filmed it and did everything in After Effects. And she was like, oh, that's like interesting. So a couple weeks went by, and she's like, hey, can you make like an actual like video for like the league, like with all of your footage? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, I don't throw away clips either. Like, all my, like a lot of people will just kind of keep the goals, like big plays. I keep all of my footage, because there's so many things that these NHL players but there's so many things that they're doing from a skill standpoint that people don't see. So like, I kind of wanted to be that person that kind of just showed that in a different light, and showed people like, hockey's a tough sport. Like, you might knock these guys, but like, you don't, like, this is what they're really doing out there. So that video kind of went crazy for them. And from there, just kind of like slowly started to take off. And it was pretty overwhelming at the time when it did, because I started getting approached at like Sabres games and stuff. And which was super sick. And just people were asking me like how you do it. And like, that's so super cool. And it's kind of built like a little bit of like a community, like for myself, aside from like the Dishin stuff that like Matt and I and all the guys over there have built over the years. It kind of like built like a little personal brand, I guess, for me in a sense. So I've tried to like really, I guess, dial in a little bit on that too, because personal branding, obviously, especially in today's day and age, is super important now. And it's been cool. Like, it's been super cool. I've been able to help out a lot of different creators and also help out kids and stuff who want to get into this kind of work just based off of a few videos going pretty viral. So, and that's something I've always, I mean, when I started doing this stuff, I didn't have a ton of help. I had, my buddy Adam, who's helped me out a ton, just showing me different editing techniques and things like that. But I never had somebody to really help me the way I feel like I can help others who want to kind of get into this. So, it's kind of opened up a few other doors for me. And it's also kind of, I guess, like it's helped me get hired for like different jobs, but like people are like trusting me to do what I do instead of just micromanaging me. And I'm super grateful for that.
Well, and that came out of, I mean, from the way you described it, that's kind of cool. I think it's cool. And it turns out a lot of other people did too. And it, like you said, opened a lot of doors. I think I might have skipped over too a big part of this story. I know when we were talking about Skateskins, and that leads into something else. So Sean, maybe you can get us back on track, so I don't just keep following threads around. I'm hopping around here.
Yeah, no, this is all good. This is all great. The format's flowing, and people are still watching, so we're doing a good job. But my one note on the thing, I think it's such a cool. I think one of the hard things that people don't realize when you watch a game is the head tracking that players do during a game, right? Like if you've played the game, you realize how much, like it's the type of thing that even if you go play a beer league game, you realize how much you have to scan around, right? Like it's one of those things that's a hard thing to translate to someone who's never played the game. And I've actually shown Nick, some of your videos of using that where you lock in on the players' heads to show kind of, I think there was the McKinnon, it might have been the McKinnon one or maybe the McCarr one, but I remember showing to someone like, this is the amount of head motion in the way, like how do you recognize the next play? This is kind of, and I thought that's such a great tool for that, and we'll make sure to link that in all of the stuff here. The thing for me that I wanted to kind of continue on that front when it comes to doing the video and the photography and everything like that, I'm curious for you, how did it change? How has it kind of changed how you looked at the sport? Like, because you played the game your whole life and everything like that, and eventually at some point you get a camera and you start to look at it through that lens, intentionally using that language here. But how did it change how you kind of looked at the game yourself, and whether it's watching as a fan, whether it's when you guys go play still, like how did it kind of change for you when you added that kind of skill to your life set?
I think for me, it's kind of helped as just from a full like videographer, cinematographer standpoint. I think it's helped me really anticipate the game a lot more, and obviously like I've played it my whole life, but really have a better understanding for, okay, like where's this guy moving the puck on the power play, for example? Is he going to the half wall? Is he looking to do a drop pass? So there's a lot more things that I'm looking for and looking at when I'm filming a hockey game. It's not just kind of following the play. It's really helped me kind of create a little bit more of anticipation, so that if I whip my camera pretty fast, I can still keep everything in frame. Because a shot on goal, for example, those happen so fast in the NHL. So to be able to, I think it's helped me just create it's helped me be able to anticipate the game a lot more. And not miss anything either, because things do get missed. You have tough bounces, on things. So I'd say anticipation for sure.
Okay. We were talking about Skateskins. I totally derailed us to talk about all the sweet camera work, but connect the dots for me from Skateskins to Dishin and what you're doing now.
So Matt started Just Dishin back in like 2012 as like a Twitter account. And it kind of just grew from there, from Instagram and things like Twitter, Instagram. And I remember he moved to Buffalo back, I think like 2015, 2016 maybe. And I remember I reached out to him just randomly, just saying like, hey, saw your, Buffalo, like, want to pick your brain on some marketing questions, like if you have some time. And we linked up, I remember, and we hung out for like an hour and a half and just like talked about a lot of different stuff. We talked about the sport, kind of what's going on in the sport, who we know, players we know, what we're seeing. And I don't know, we just kind of like vibed, and we both kind of had similar mindsets to certain things that we wanted to see grow in the game. But I think it was just like, we just both enjoyed certain things. Like he's an incredible designer in Photoshop and things like that. And I really like video. So, I think there was also some chemistry there where we were like, okay, well, if you're good in this area, and, I do like video stuff. So like, let's kind of collaborate a little bit and like see what we could do. And, we've been at the Dishin thing a lot longer than Skateskins. And we've been fortunate enough to work with NHL clubs now, doing merchandise collaborations, worked with a lot of big brands, and things like that. So it's like Sean, you mentioned earlier, just doing the Blackhawks collab. That was our first ever NHL collab. And then Matt did one with the Detroit Red Wings, and all of that merchandise is sold in their merch store. We've done 2 collabs with the Buffalo Sabres now. Both of those collabs went very, very well. And for me, like, Matt is like, without him, like the ship doesn't sail. So, for him, he's the CEO, right? So he's dealing with, the manufacturing, the production, the design spread, where I'm more focused on like the video element, the like more so like helping out with branding and how's this going to look on social, like what do we want to do, and kind of helping with that strategy. And over the years, I think like us working together, we've been able to just push each other to grow in different areas and different skill sets. And I think for me, like as I've gotten older and as I've kind of like moved in my career, I'm like slowly kind of leaning into more of like a producer and director role, aside from like the video stuff. And the stuff people even see with like the video stuff I do, like with the motion tracking, is something so small that I do on a day-to-day basis. Like I'm doing so many other things that people just don't really see. But it's it's been a long journey, but it's kind of led us from just doing things in Matt's apartment when we were younger to now having a storefront on Main Street in the city of Buffalo, right in the theater district here. And we get people all the time that come by the shop who are from Buffalo, even outside of Buffalo, just saying like, hey, we've been following you guys over the years, just wanted to stop by. And we give tours all the time of the shop now. So it's our home base. So it's been fun to grow with Matt and all the boys.
I will. I just booked my flight about. I just booked my flight for the draft a couple days ago. So I've told you I have not made it to the storefront yet, but I'm going. I will. We have to get that on the calendar for. I'll be there in June for the draft and maybe for the combine as well. So I do need to. It's been on my list for a couple of years now to see your guys' storefront. So we got to make that happen.
Yeah, we will for sure.
Yeah, I want to go to. You as someone who has filmed some of the stuff and you worked some of the post stuff, and I wanted to kind of, when you're watching games now, what are some, now that you kind of have an idea from both behind the camera, doing some of the working as a producer on things, what is in your view, what are some of the things that you would like to see added to the hockey broadcast that we can kind of bring to it that hasn't been put in the traditional broadcast, but is probably a skill or a tool that they could just reach to and grab? What would you like to see done there?
I really like the mic'd up stuff. I know some guys don't like wearing the mics, but I like hearing what's going on in games. I watched a video the other day that the Sabres put out of Tage Thompson mic'd up, and just to hear what these guys are doing on the ice and how they're communicating, like obviously like your average hockey fan who maybe didn't play the sport, but just kind of watches, like maybe won't understand certain things of that. But I think it's cool to understand that, because in basketball, like you hear everything, right? Like other sports, you kind of hear that. Like if you're sitting courtside at a basketball game, like you're hearing what these guys are saying most of the time, right? But for hockey, like unless you're on the bench or you're in between the benches, you're not hearing anything. Like maybe if you're in the upper bowl, you might hear like a hey, yeah. Oh. But other than that, like you're not hearing what these guys are saying. And obviously there's a lot of trash talking that goes on. But I would like to see more guys kind of mic'd up a little bit just to hear, what's going on, what the emotions are like live. Obviously that might be kind of tough to cut up, but the NHL is also, I don't know if you guys saw this, but they have a tracker now. I think it sits behind the net. They have cameras all throughout the league, and they have a camera sitting behind the net, and it tracks all these players of like where they're going. And you could like literally just watch these guys like move on that camera. If you want to pick a player, you can watch that player. So I think the league's done a really good job with that and kind of incorporating that into the broadcast.
Yeah, it's funny. If you're not right near ice level, and you mentioned it almost sounds like the only language that makes it up. It almost sounds like an automotive shop because you just hear wheel, 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 wheel all the time.
Yeah.
That's all you ever hear. So it's fun, but I do like that because I think we see parts of it, but I think there's also times where there's so much more space that it could go down. Last one for me, unless Robert's got something else. Last one for me, and I'm very selfish in this, and because I just told you I'll go visit the storefront there. When we got the Buffalo trip planned for the draft, probably the combine as well. Hopefully 3 more rounds of playoffs because that would be really fun to see with the Sabres as well. But I need you to. I'm gonna cheat in give me my Buffalo food list recommendation right now. Give me my travel itinerary for so I'm hitting Buffalo the right way.
All right, let me think here for a sec. If we're talking wings, Gabriel's Gate, that's in the city. I want to say Wing Nuts and Barbill. Those are like top 3. Got to hit at least one of those spots. As far as pizza goes, you can't go wrong with Picasso's or Lenovo. And if you're looking for something nice, I'd say Mother's. Mother's is a good spot. That's been the boys' go-to spot for a few years now. We usually go there, celebrate birthdays and things like that. So yeah, I'd say those are the 4 I'd recommend for sure.
Okay. I do have one more, but it's a lot less of a fun and kind of easy breezy one. It's a little bit more of, I guess I should just ask it instead of talking about it. Good interviewing skills over here. Mm-hmm. A lot of what we've talked about today has revolved kind of around personality, either the personality of the players or in Mike Dupp's case, that's player personality, but it's also the personality of the game, getting to see parts of it that fans don't normally see. It seems from hearing you talk and from all of your work, a big part of what you do is kind of devoted to infusing more personality into the game, into what players do, what they wear. How do you think hockey takes that next step? Because a lot of times when it comes to that element of the game, showing that level of personality, hockey doesn't tend to be the first sport to do that. So what do you think needs to happen for more of that personality to show up for Skateskins to showing up on the bench someday? Maybe that would be a big sponsorship thing that would have to happen at a much higher level, much to the chagrin of Bauer or someone like that. But what needs to happen for that to start happening even more than it already is, do you think?
I think for one, a few things. I think number one, we saw the dress code get dropped. I think that was a really, really big step for a lot of guys because, we're seeing guys like Pasternak. We're seeing a lot more of his style. You're seeing guys like William Nylander, Austin Matthews, Tage Thompson. Like the list goes on. Like these guys are into fashion. They want to be able to express themselves. These younger guys don't want to wear suits to these games. And that's one thing I have seen. They don't want to wear the suits. Some guys still do it, and that's fine, and I get that. But I think that was a big step for one. And number two, to that point, these guys are, with the dress code being dropped, now they're showcasing more of their walk-in fits. It's not just the regular suit and tie traditional. They're showing. They're the Jordans they have on, they're walking in with a Kith hoodie on and things like that. So I think that for one is a step in the right direction. I think number two is these guys, the younger guys especially, they want to be active on social. They want to be posting. It's a matter of them having people that are making the content and kind of helping them with that, makes put something together, whether that's, getting the right photos or the right video content for them to match up with what they want to post and how they want to be active on that. Whether that's, a player getting hyped for the playoffs and they're picking their song out for a video and they want to post on their social, because at the end of the day, like they're promoting themselves, they're promoting the game, they're promoting the organization, which ultimately helps get more fans in the building. It helps get more eyes on our game. So I think when those guys can be a little bit more active on social, I think that helps a lot. And, I'll use William Nylander as an example. I think he's the only guy right now in the NHL that has a YouTube channel. Like, why is that? Like, we have guys like Celebrini. I would love to see a day in the life vlog with him. Like, unbelievable year this year. Obviously didn't make the postseason, but, he's a guy that had an incredible year. He went and was very relevant in the Olympics. He wasn't just another guy in that locker room. Like he played a big role for Team Canada. So I would like to see more of that. And I think that guys like that are kind of getting to that point where they're ready. It's just a matter of, okay, we need people in place to help with that execution, because these guys, they're busy, they're skating every day. They're going to recovery. They got workout, they got film. They don't have time to be posting, but I think when you have the right people involved in the right camps, it's, you can't go wrong. And I think William Nylander's camp's done a really good job with that YouTube channel. And I hope more players do that. I really do, because I really think that can help grow the game. I know that's something when I was younger, I really wanted to see how certain guys lived, what that was like. I loved watching the lead up to the Winter Classics over the years. You guys remember that with like the Flyers and. Oh, yeah. I remember that's where I fell in love with watching Claude Giroux was from the road to the Winter Classic. And you got Mac Miller on in the locker room and showing that as their win song. And I think just, more of that. You need more guys just, again, being comfortable with showing their personality. I think it just kind of starts with, again, that dress code. And then from there, it's just having the right people kind of help them along with it. And I think we're kind of getting to that point. And I feel like hockey right now is in such a great space. I think it's going to continue to move in the right direction. And I'm excited for the future.
Well, it's so much of the storytelling too, right? Like, I love the element of, I always go back to the part of people care about sports because it's a way to tell a human story through sports, and we need more and more of those touch points. So I think that's such a great thing. Nick, really appreciate you coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us. It's you guys. Everyone should go check out his work, as I said, or I think Robert linked to it in some of the comments area here. We'll throw it in if you're listening to the audio platform, we'll make sure to link it there as well. And I'm gonna make sure to actually see the shop in person coming up in a couple months here. So I'm excited about that. So thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're excited to have you, and appreciate you guys having me on. This was fun, guys.
You bet, Nick. Thanks. You're doing great work. It's genuinely awesome. Everyone should go check it out. 716 Nick on Instagram.
Yep. Appreciate that, guys.
All right. Thanks, Nick.
Yep.
All right. There he goes. Nick, wait, try the last name one more time, Sean. Am I putting you on the spot?
I mean, I learned the I was silent.
716 Nick.
Yeah,
I think that's the.
I learned the I was silent. So that was the. That is. But another good guest. I will. I'm really. It's been fun. It's been fun today. I intentionally or unintentionally, I liked how there was some thematic connection between both Dimitri and Nick, and kind of the way they both have, and the way they both kind of have built something that didn't really exist in their space before, right? Like, yes, podcast exists and there's other products and stuff like that, but I like for both of them, I thought it was a really cool kind of share both of those stories on the same pod and kind of go with that. And so that was pretty fun here. So
yeah, it's showing, hustle. It's not always just about hustle. Like you need connections and opportunity and all those sorts of things, and luck sometimes, honestly. But like he talked about with just a random video that they took, and that happened to be the one that caught fire and went viral and everything. But still, that video was still a little bit of the culmination of a lot of the hard work they'd been doing before. And it happened all because it was something he personally was interested in and passionate about, and said, oh, this is cool. I want to do more of this. Like, I think his exact phrase was, oh, that's sick, so I'm going to do it. And like that really is, I mean, Dimitri is similarly, like you said, these are people who just care about something and they want to keep digging, going down it. Like, one of the coolest things I think is that the term, nerd has a completely different connotation now than it did, 30 years ago, like Revenge of the Nerds and stuff. Now, because we understand it properly, that really a nerd is just someone who's especially interested in a certain field, more so than most people. And those are the most interesting sorts of people to talk to anyway, who really, really have gone down deep down into the rabbit hole of something. And then they find stuff that they're like, hey, I think actually like people would also find this interesting. I just need to find a way to tell them about it or show it or make it because it doesn't exist yet, but I want to create it. So yeah, great unintentional/intentional theming today by our producer.
Clearly, the one thing our producer has done well, I believe, is figuring out and booking the guests. We are still working on some of the delivery and the execution on A, getting them on time, and B, with sometimes our audio technicalities. But definitely, I've been pretty proud of kind of our collection of guests that has really come in. And we're going to be, we've done it this was show 4. We will be back for show 5 next week. Definitely, I don't know who the guests will be next week, but I'm sure our crack producer will figure out and make it work once again. Robert, before we go, I wanted to throw one thing to you before we go. We kind of talked to a couple people here about what they've brought to the game, how they look at the game tonight. You go into tonight's game, Dallas, Minnesota. Obviously, that's going to be your main focus. But when you are watching that game tonight, are you going in with how do you go into watching that game tonight? Just because I know this one's going to be a little bit more pigeonholed to the moment and maybe not as evergreen. It's before game 3 of a series, but not everyone gets to hear Robert Tiffin's thoughts 5 hours before game time, and so I'd like to hear them.
Yeah. Mike Palucci asked me something similar earlier today, and what I came up with, and I don't know if I'm going to stick to this, but my answer off the cuff then was whoever wins game 5 of this series is going to win the whole series. And that's either because I think whoever wins tonight is going to win the next 2, or because they're going to split and whoever wins game 5 is going to win game 6. The reason I thought that, and I still think that, is because Dallas still needs to prove something. And if they can't prove that they can win again, and especially do it on the road in a tough environment, they're going to have a really, really hard time coming back from the series. I'm no genius to say that coming back from 3-1 is a difficult thing to do, but I think if Dallas can win one more game and show that game 1 really was a fluke, that's what they need to do. It's the Colorado series from last year, right? You get beaten pretty badly. Now, game 1 actually against Colorado last year was not as bad as game 1 against Minnesota this year. Dallas lost much worse this year, really, the more closely you look at it. But in playoffs, you know what? Doesn't matter what the score was. It doesn't carry over. And Dallas got 2 overtime wins, 1 in Colorado, and that's all they ended up needing to win the series. So I think as long as the Stars get one more win tonight, then they're in pretty good shape. But for me, they kind of, in a weird way, it is kind of a must-win tonight, because if tonight looks a lot more like game 1 than game 2, I think the vibes are pretty rough going into game 4 at that point. And suddenly a lot of things might be on the table because you do not want to come back to Dallas down 3. So is there something in any of that? Hard to say. I think to me, game 3 is going to tell us a lot. Everything, maybe.
Yeah. I don't think it's a must-win for either team, but I do think the split of these 2 games is vital for both teams. I do think that is a vital reality. I'm excited about this one tonight. It's because, as Dimitri said, Stars series don't really start till game 2, and so it's how does it go from there? Obviously, that's something they're going to have to address. But it's going to be an interesting setup tonight. So
can Mikko Rantanen get going, right? Can Retskovin up there with Johnston and Rantanen? Because the Duchesne line's been cooking, but they've been the only one really. The Huru line was fine the other night, but not necessarily driving play. It just wasn't a liability like the third line was the other night. So they need a second scoring line to give them some of that extra scoring, especially on the road when matchups are going to be tougher. So that to me will be the key. Because right now, if you're Minnesota, you almost look at shutting down the Duchesne line more so than the top line right now, just given how things have gone.
Yeah. Well, we will be back next week for episode 5 of Algorithmically Incorrect. We will continue to do this on Wednesdays. It's been a really fun thing. So Robert, thank you to you for continuing to dive into this project with me. Thank you to
You're
both of our
welcome,
guests
Sean.
thank you for both of our guests.
Yes.
Thank you to, I think this is the most live viewers we've had as it's gone along, which has been kind of cool to see. And if you're listening later, we love you too, and thank you, and tell your friends and tell people to check it out, because this has been a really fun thing for us, and I love being able to take some time out of my Wednesday afternoon to be distracted and talk hockey with Robert and some other smart people.
Likewise.
And I love that this has been able to, I know we had someone, one of the best things I heard the other day was someone responded on Twitter saying that they moved their work schedule around to listen to this. So I really, that means
shout
a ton
out to Tim, I think. Yeah.
So that means a ton to me. So really appreciate it. And we'll be back next week, and I'm excited about it.
See y'all then.